competitions and just regular
Bash to become the 2025 men's singles world champion. We'll discuss his triumphant moment with NBC Sports Boston's Trenni Casey, and good news for Mr. Tush Pusher Browdy over there. The practice is safe for now in the NFL. It's all ahead. Hour number 1, Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. Today's the day that President Trump says he'll announce a plethora of reciprocal tariffs. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says these are supposed to mimic the tariffs that other countries place on goods they import from the U.S. NPR's Danielle Kurtzleben says Trump's on-again, off-again tariffs over the past several weeks have affected markets.
Consumer confidence and stock indexes have been plummeting as this reciprocal tariff day has grown closer. And amid that, Trump seems to have softened on this idea of equal tariffs. And yesterday, Leavitt also said different countries have been lobbying the president's team, but Trump has left the door open to exceptions. That said, he has said that he doesn't want many.
NPR's Danielle Kurtzleben reporting. Trump has also said that starting tomorrow, he will impose a 25% tariff on imports of foreign automobiles. A federal judge in Manhattan has dismissed the federal corruption case against New York City Democratic Mayor Eric Adams. NPR's Carrie Johnson reports the judge has concluded a court cannot force the Justice Department to prosecute any defendant.
Newly installed officials at President Trump's Justice Department sought to back away from the corruption case against Mayor Adams, arguing it would spur Adams to cooperate with the administration's tough immigration strategy. Judge Dale Ho wrote, quote, "Everything here smacks of a bargain," but the judge said he had no legal authority to compel DOJ to prosecute someone. The judge said career prosecutors who pushed to bring the Adams case followed the rules, and there was no evidence they had any improper motives. Judge Ho dismissed the charges with prejudice, meaning the DOJ cannot bring these counts again or hold the case over Adams as a kind of leverage. Carrie Johnson, NPR News, Washington.
The Israeli defense minister says that the Israeli military will be taking over more areas in Gaza as it broadens its incursion there. This comes after the Israeli military ordered Palestinians in the southern Gaza city of Rafah to evacuate the city completely. NPR's Hadil Al-Shalchi has more.
Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz said the military is expanding its operation in Gaza to, quote, crush and clear the area of terrorists. In a statement, he said that Israel is going to seize, quote, large territories that would be included in a buffer zone along Israel's security fence with Gaza. To do this, he said it would mean extensive evacuation of Palestinians in those areas. The United Nations estimates that more than 140,000 Palestinians have been displaced since a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas broke down last month. The families of the hostages said in a statement that they were, quote, horrified to wake up to this news and that the priority should be to return the 59 hostages still held in Gaza. Hadil Al-Shalchi, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
Stocks have turned higher on Wall Street. The Dow Jones Industrials are now up about 80 points. You're listening to NPR.
Good morning with the latest from the GBH Newsroom. I'm Henry Santoro. The MBTA is rolling out its new Capital Investment Plan, or CIP, and inviting the public to weigh in. The blueprint outlines what projects the T intends to invest in the tune of $10 billion in the years ahead. Advocates are celebrating plans for system upgrades meant to improve safety and reliability. But the state's former Transportation Secretary, Jim Aloisi, says he wishes there were more money earmarked for ambitious projects like connecting the red and blue lines.
That, for me, is a real disappointment. It can't be sugar-coated. We're either serious about this or we're not. And the CIP, in my judgment, doesn't show that we're serious enough about it.
In the past, the T has said that a link between the lines is a long-term goal. The agency is holding a public meeting tomorrow where riders can share their opinions on the capital investment plan. A second public meeting is scheduled for next week. Gun rights advocates in Massachusetts have the wheels in motion to overturn a 2024 update of the state's already tough firearms law. Patriot Ledger reports that the advocates have so far collected more than 90,000 signatures to place a repeal referendum on the 2026 ballot. The move faces opposition from mental health professionals and legal experts who argue that the tougher laws are necessary for public safety. Red Sox-Orioles play Game 2 of their series in Baltimore tonight. 6:35 start. Celtics host the Heat at the Garden. 38 degrees in Boston right now. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include CFP, Certified Financial Planner Professionals, committed to acting in their clients' best interests. Learn more at letsmakeaplan.org. And the listeners who support this NPR station.
He's Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. I'm going to be back here on Friday. Live music from the great Rodgers and Hammerstein musical Carousel. Remember that one?
Yeah.
That was a big one.
You know who acts in Carousel?
Lee Pelton.
Lee Pelton
I
from
know.
the Boston
I
Foundation.
know.
Plus, we're going to have some great singers here on Friday from
You think
Carousel.
he's Bad Boy Billy from the Carousel, Jim?
We'll find out on Friday, won't we?
Okay, next Tuesday we're going to be joined by Michelle Wu for another edition of Ask the Mayor. She'll take our questions and yours. And next Wednesday is Ask the Auditor with Diana DiZoglio. Hello, Jim.
Hey, Marjorie. So in Governor Maura Healey's State of the Commonwealth speech earlier this year, she had this to say about Massachusetts under Trump 2.0.
I assure you, we will take every opportunity to work with the federal government in any way that benefits Massachusetts. And I also promise you, we will not change who we are.
But with news of deep research cuts at Mass General Brigham, $9 billion in threatened funding to Harvard, college students kidnapped from city streets by masked agents of the government, $100+ million cut from federal funding for K-12 schools in Massachusetts. Do you feel like we here in Massachusetts can even make that promise not to change anymore? I guess the question is, does Trumpism feel more real now that its impacts are beginning to be felt right here at home? And what do you plan to do about it? Hopefully people are going to show up on the streets if that's their cup of tea, come this rally on Saturday. But what else are you planning on doing? The number is 877-301-8970. How would you like Massachusetts to stand up? Or, despite what Governor Healey said, is it possible that we're going to be forced to change who we are by Donald Trump?
Let me tell you, I'm totally beside myself. And for some reason, the attacks on Mass General Brigham is really killing me, because you think one of the things you always say, it's cliche around Boston, well, there may be terrible traffic, but this is a good place to be sick in because there's so many great hospitals, right? Well, you know, first, of course, they got to be in their bonnet about anything having to do with LGBTQ stuff or trans. There's bigotry there. And then they don't, Trump doesn't like COVID. They pretend that COVID is all done, even though hundreds of people still die from COVID. Not as bad as it was, obviously. But now they're going after, I mean, that's what we are here. We are a research center for these great hospitals who find, you know, cures and help for things like cancer and Alzheimer's. That's what they're going after now, cancer and Alzheimer's. So we have to all worry about that.
Research at MGB that they're attacking reproductive health, primary care, pandemic prevention. Well, you mentioned that with COVID.
They don't like pandemics.
No, they don't.
They don't like pandemics. So
no, they're fine with pandemics. They don't like pandemic prevention. Is what the bottom line is.
So think about that. I mean, what that means in terms of, and these physicians that were interviewed, they talk about how these researchers saying it's devastating, we're terrified. They've also gone after University of Massachusetts Chan Medical Center, Boston Children's Hospital, Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center. So the research that is going on there now is not going to be going on there if this all happens. And, you know, I think a lot of us are concerned about death and dying, so we may be worried about that. And the other thing that's got myself so upset, RFK Jr., you know, the vaccine denier, even though he says he's not a vaccine denier, he has gone after now this administration for children and families in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I guess at 5:30 yesterday morning, people found out, there was an email sent out telling all the people, not all of them, but a lot of them that worked there, that they were going to be basically fired in 2 months administratively. They got to the office, that's where a lot of them found out, where their building badges were invalid, so they don't know how they're going to be able to get in and get the personal items that people take to their offices, like pictures and frames and stuff like that. But the big thing is, this is the place that runs Head Start, which is
low-income fuel assistance too.
Well, you wonder if there's some interfamily problem there. Maybe Joe, Oil for Joe, wrote something nasty about RFK Jr., so he's going after low-income fuel help.
Young Joe and his father have both been pretty outspoment about the rise of
so maybe
their cousin,
RFK Jr.
uncle.
Is upset about that, but he's also going after the Department of Children and Families. You know, when I was a young reporter, I did tons of reporting on the Department of Children and Families. They never
By the way, I didn't know you then, and that was unbelievably brilliant reporting. It really was.
Thank you very much.
I know you don't like compliments,
but they never get enough money. You know, these poor kids get screwed left and right. It's kind of on the bottom of the list all the time. Now they're going to get even less money, and you know, just Moore Healey and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is not going to be able to bail us out. This is millions and millions and millions of dollars.
Well, that's not fair. You obviously didn't hear what the Senate President said yesterday. Here's Karen Spilka, Senate President, I think providing a huge amount of reassurance to people about what the response 2025 is going to be in Massachusetts. Here's the Senate President.
That is the idea, to meet with experts, meet with the Senate chairs, and come up with policies that will help alleviate some of the pain. What cuts are they hearing? What are the consequences of those cuts? What can we do by policy to help our residents?
Okay, well, I'm feeling better. I don't know about you.
Okay, you know what?
No.
They're gonna form a committee.
They are.
And in 2 or 4 years, they might have some ideas about what we need to do.
No, there is a real sense of urgency
That
up
was really
there.
pathetic. But it's just, I don't think, did people vote for this? Did people want this? Did they want cancer research to be shot through the head at Mass General?
Yes, they did.
I don't think that's what this election
Can
was
I
about.
say something? Because I don't want to scare people. A lot of this is totally real. The thing that Margie and I were mentioning about the closing of these regional health and human services offices, in theory, what the administration says, the Trump administration, is we're not cutting low-income fuel assistance nor Head Start. The question is, how do you access them if the offices that facilitate you accessing them don't exist anymore? So
well, it's interesting you should say that, because the person that runs Head Start in Massachusetts was quoted in the Globe, said they don't know what the plan is to deal with this, ensure programs receive services. And you know why they don't know? Because everyone in her region was terminated. So that's a problem.
By the way, that a texter here is being critical of you. Do you mind if I read it?
Sure.
Okay. Stop whining about cuts to cancer, Alzheimer's, and pandemic research. Take more cod liver oil. I think that's excellent advice from RFK Jr.
You know, it's a weird feeling. You know, you feel like your country's coming after you. Your government's coming after you. You know,
well, they are. The government is coming after you.
We had an event with Michael Curry the other night, and we made the kind of black humor joke, no pun intended. Well, maybe there is a pun intended. That if you're an African American in this country, you've been screwed
You're used to Well, what do you mean to start going after? If they're cutting basic services, they are going after Americans.
Arresting you for political thought.
877-301-8970. So the basic question is, we're trying to give you examples of how the worst of Trump and Musk is already being felt here in Massachusetts. Are you feeling it? What's your reaction to it now that it's closer to home, rather than just press conferences like the tariff press conference? By the way, another example, and then we will get to the calls, TJ Maxx is saying things like furniture, discount clothing, electronics prices are all going to go up after these tariffs. Again, even though we don't know the details, are announced this afternoon. By the way, one last thing. There's a great piece by Brian Stelter, who's the media guy for CNN.
He's great.
Talking about how, and I'm paraphrasing, how pathetic it is that much of the media and Trump must be gleeful, are adopting his stupid, misleading terms and calling this, with no irony, Liberation Day, because that's what he called this. We're going to be liberated from our dependence on we'll talk to Jeffrey Sonnenfeld from Yale School of Management at 12:30 today. But what I was reading last night about, this whole notion it's going to cause more companies to manufacture goods in the United States. That can take 5-10 years until plants are built because foreign cars are too expensive for people to buy. Trump says there'll be a little bit of pain in the short run. The short run could be half a decade.
But I guess the question is, why do we want to shut down medical research in the United States of America? Don't we think that's a good thing, generally speaking?
Well, actually, again, I don't mean to criticize you so much so early. You either have a choice, either medical research into things that matter or tax cuts for billionaires. You have to decide what your priorities are. Andreas.
I've been corrected by our staff here. We always start with saying first they came from the Jews. Actually, it's first they came for the communists, the trade unionists. How far down the list are we? And
okay, enough of us.
Okay.
Andreas, you're in Beverly. You are on Boston Public Radio. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Hi there, guys. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
I have two comments on it. One,
Please.
you asked, what are people doing? And I think one of the weirdest thing is, other than what's coming out of Washington, is that people are not out on the streets. I mean, it's perfectly clear that, what they're up to. They're going to change it into a dictatorship. I think in some degree we're already there. So why are people not outraged and are out on the street? Anyway.
Well, don't leave that yet because, Saturday, hopefully, in this city and cities across this country,
at the Boston,
people are going to be out on the streets. The argument Marjorie and I have off air every single day about it, is it going to be a one and done, in which case it's meaningless, or is it going to be the beginning of people standing up, and as the former ambassador to Denmark said to us yesterday, showing how outraged they really are? What's your second point?
Well, no, let me just go back to that point. I agree with that. Lots of people were there. I'll be there.
Good.
But what we're doing here in Beverly, we just had our 6th protest yesterday.
Great.
We're doing it every Tuesday. They're doing it in Ipswich every week. They just started it in Salem. Yesterday I talked to a lady who the first time came to our protest. She started in Gloucester. I think it needs to be throughout the state, throughout the country. It's an outrage, and I think people should find at least once a week an hour to show that.
Andreas, we appreciate that. Call. The thing on the hands-off rally is a nationwide thing on Saturday, 11 to 2 here in Boston at the what do you call that building in the middle of Boston, the Common Parkway? Thank you.
Thank
the
you,
Parkman
Zoe.
Bandstand. Anonymous texter has a good idea.
What is it?
Maybe the Democrats could write a strongly worded letter to the editor.
Well, in all fairness, I'm going to talk about this at 12:55. Maybe it didn't change the world, but Cory Booker's 25 hours
good for him.
yesterday, longest speech ever given on the Senate floor. At least, and by the way, it was not like the old days, as I'll say, reading a telephone book and a, quote, filibuster, but rather 25 hours of substantive criticism of what is and defense of those things that most of us thought were core to what this country cares about. We'll talk about that later. 877-301-8970. Ann in Sandwich, welcome to the show. Hi there.
Hi, I'm a first-time caller, and I love your show.
Thank you very much.
I'm calling because I am outraged, and I'm doing everything I can to battle this. I've joined Indivisible of the Upper Cape.
Great.
I've gone to multiple protests. I plan to be in Boston on Saturday.
Terrific.
And I'm organizing at my church to do something on social justice because this is about right and wrong.
Yeah, it's really a little crazy. And Annie,
and don't go away yet. Are your neighbors and friends doing what you're doing, or are you an outlier?
I'm getting my neighbors and friends not to be outliers. So it's a mixed bag. I think people are getting worried and scared. And I'll tell you, the Indivisible meetings, every time I go, and it's weekly now, there are at least 35, 40 people, and many of them are new people.
And before you go, do you feel a lot better knowing the Senate President's going to form a committee to study this? I'm sorry. I shouldn't do this.
That's why I love this show, the humor.
And thanks for the call. We appreciate it.
But it's really, I don't know if the Senate President thinks that was an impressive moment for her.
I think it was.
But anyway, here's somebody else who points out, RFK Jr. is behind all these cuts on DCF, which is great for him. I think that's great. And the Head Start, attack the children. It's a good idea. He says, Oh, there it is. He's a big cod liver oil advocate, RFK Jr. Anonymous texter says, cod liver oil puts lead in your pencil like Jim's virility pills. Do you know about that, Jim?
I do.
Yeah. Oh, it's supposed to be cold and raining on Saturday. That's too bad. I hope it's not so terrible.
Let's go to Jan in Rhode Island. Welcome, Jan. Hi.
Hi. I'm a first-time caller, and I live in the Boston area, and now I'm in Rhode Island. Still listening to you. I wanted to talk about the funding that's being taken from universities because of, quote, anti-Semitic behavior and actions and stuff. And half my family is Jewish. I am not anti-Semitic, though I don't have any organized religion myself. Mm-hmm. But there's a big difference between being against what Israel is doing to Gaza and being anti-Semitic.
Amen.
And they keep calling it anti-Semitic, but it's not what is going on. So
there's a great piece, we read it by a Jewish scholar from Yale who is leaving Yale actually because he said he wants to be quote unquote free and going to Canada to teach. But he has this phrase in this piece he wrote that this is an anti-Semitic attack on anti-Semitism. It's just baloney. It's like a way to go after liberals in the universities, which is what they really don't like.
Well, our buddy Alan Salomon, also former ambassador to Spain and lots of other good things, the Tisch School, I think it's called, at Tufts, former dean there, wrote a great piece in the Globe yesterday, Jan, echoing your perspective on what the Trump people say they're trying to do and what they're actually doing. Jan,
and
thanks for the call.
This guy, Jason Stanley, the guy from Yale, also says that Trump's so-called anti-Semitic efforts are making campuses more dangerous because now everyone thinks that Stanley means himself as a Jew, controls everything. Jewish students were central participants in campus last year. It took months for the media to acknowledge that. They're now trying to claim that leftism is anti-Semitism.
Yeah, we got to take a break, but before we do, I often criticize Marjorie for reading some texts that I think are trolling, and I'm about to do what I criticize her for. Pete in New Hampshire, instead of your constant fear-mongering about how about you go to doge.gov and discuss the ridiculous waste and fraud they're finding. Now, again, I don't know, Pete, and I mean this respectfully, if you were as dumb as you appear. Remember that $8 billion savings that Doge made that turns out was $8 million? Do you remember all the other things that were on the Doge front page that had to be taken down because they were phony? I mean, I hope you're kidding. But maybe you're not.
Yeah, again, it's a lie. It's not about finding waste and fraud. It's about just cutting the government into shreds, basically. And, we all know that there's waste and fraud, but that's not what this is.
Can I say one more thing? I don't want to blow my whole commentary at 12:55.
You don't want to repeat that line.
No, it's fine. Because I'm going to talk about this then, too. Okay. I am of the belief, and this is not to disparage the woman who won the judgeship in Wisconsin. Everything I read about her, she seems terrific. That vote, after he spent $25 million, I think was a total repudiation of what Elon Musk is doing, Pete, in New Hampshire.
Yeah, it was great.
It was 10-point margin, just spectacular.
She just crushed him. It was great. And the two Senate seats in Florida were won by Republicans. I don't know how significant it is that they were run by a lot less than they were won before.
20 points less, practically, than 5 months ago.
Which, people talk about that these programs don't win, these candidates don't win. It's Trump that wins. And the idea that he has, what do you call it, coattails or whatever it is.
Coattails.
Is not necessarily true. Anyway, we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to try to calm down during the break. We're talking about all these cuts that are coming to what makes Massachusetts in many ways. All these great hospitals, all these great universities, all this great biomedical research,
not being kidnapped off the streets of Somerville.
And the efforts to do what we can is not enough for kids that are poor and families that are poor. That's all raining down upon us. 877-301-8970.
Bhutan has a unique approach to separation of church and state. Ordained clergy are not allowed to participate in elections at all.
For a Buddhist person, or the power or the money is just momentary. For the monastic order, this momentary pleasure is not attractive.
The interplay of faith and public life in Bhutan, next time on The World.
this afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Moonbox Productions, presenting Crowns, a powerful musical mixing gospel, jazz, and a whole lot of hatitude. Opens April 11th at Arrow Street Arts in Cambridge. Tickets at arrowstreetarts.org. And Gentle Giant Moving and Storage Company, employing athletes since 1980 and currently hiring to join their team. Gentle Giant is an equal opportunity employer. More at gentlegiant.com/careers.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're getting your reaction to the real impacts, not fear-mongering, as Pete from New Hampshire texted, real impacts of Trumpism on our lives here in Massachusetts. And I try not to say what Marjorie says during the breaks. Marjorie said to me just now, I'm feeling really down. Could you play that sound from Senator Spilka one more time? So we're going to do that just for Marjorie. Here's Senate President Spilka at a press conference yesterday announcing a Response 2025 committee.
Just jumping right in.
Here it is.
No holds barred.
Here's Senate President Spilka.
That is the idea, to meet with experts, meet with the Senate chairs, and come up with policies that will help alleviate some of the pain. What cuts are they hearing? What are the consequences of those cuts? What can we do by policy to help our residents?
Do you feel any better or not?
You know, I think she might read the newspaper because the Boston Globe is loaded with details on what the cuts are. That could help her. We didn't mention the cuts to Springfield by the millions of dollars.
$47 million in K-12 cuts to Springfield, Massachusetts.
Because they probably should have moved quicker spending that money they got during the COVID pandemic. New Bedford's getting really hit by millions and millions of dollars. And by the way, the Globe quotes, and the Senate President might want to read this too, about this guy at Mass General who researches, he's a professor of radiology who develops tools to treat Alzheimer's, which I think a lot of people are concerned about, that drugs can help people with Alzheimer's disease because there seems to be almost an epidemic of it. He said of these cuts, we don't even know what a lot of the cuts are at Mass General yet, by the way. We just know a few of them. A lot of it's still up in the air. He says, we're all terrified. Every morning, says Dr. Bruce Fischel, I wake up to check to see whether our grants have been affected. And Don Berwick, that we had on a couple of weeks ago, that used to run Medicare and Medicaid under the Obama administration.
He did?
Yeah, he talks about the fact Massachusetts is being disproportionately hurt because the state has been not a national, but an international leader in biomedical research for decades. I think Republicans like biomedical research. Doesn't everybody like biomedical
I thought they used
research? So they're crushing the Trump administration, one of the international leaders right here in Massachusetts.
The only thing I can think of other than this rally on Saturday is forming a committee on Beacon Hill. I think that is the way to go. Let's go to Rebecca in Acton. You're on Boston Public Radio. Marjorie and Jim Browdy. Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for taking my call.
Of course.
First off, I want to thank you guys for promoting the rally this Saturday. I'm actually the press rep for Mass 5051. We're one of the main organizers for the event. Great. And I don't know if you guys heard the news, but last night we announced that the Dropkick Murphys are going to be playing an acoustic set.
I hadn't heard that. That's fabulous.
Great idea, Rebecca.
That's fabulous.
That'll get a crowd.
Yeah, we're really excited. Ken's been very outspoken against this administration. We think he's going to have a lot of good things to say.
What is the porta potty situation going to be in Boston Common for this event?
That's the question, right? So we are meeting at the Commons, you're right, but we're actually marching to City Hall Plaza.
Yeah.
And there are going to be porta potties there.
That's good, because it's a big problem, as you know, in the Back Bay of Boston, where to use the bathroom.
Oh, I know.
It's been a big problem. You take the kids to swan boats and you're kind of screwed, you know what I mean?
Yeah, there are only so many people we can send over to Starbucks to buy drinks. So, yeah, we definitely thought of porta potties this time.
Okay.
By the way, Starbucks, the CEO is at least standing up to the anti-DEI stuff of the Trump administration. Hey, Rebecca, do you mind staying on hold and talking to one of our producers? And maybe we can stay in touch with you the next few days to get the latest on what's going on Saturday. Rebecca, thanks, and congratulations to your organization,
You know, here's an anonymous texter saying, could you please explain to us why an institution like Harvard should be receiving taxpayer money, please? The National Institute of Health funds a lot of research, and Harvard is affiliated with Mass General and Brigham. So you can, dispute whether the humanities department at Harvard should be getting taxpayer money. They're not, as far as I know, but that's how we fund medical science in the United States, through the federal government.
Right, and when we talked about the topics that, for example, MGB is researching that have potential to be cut here, like reproductive health, pandemic preparation, primary care,
Cancer.
that I hope that matters, and cancer.
Cancer drugs.
I hope that matters to you, even if you're not Harvard affiliated.
Isn't it a wonderful thing that people that get breast cancer now have a very good chance of surviving because we have early detection and much better cancer drugs? People that get, lymphoma, people that get leukemia, childhood leukemia, because of medical research, children that get leukemia can survive most of the time. How do you think that happens? It's medical research.
An anonymous texter says, President Spilka is actually trying to deal with cuts. You mock her, but praise people going to this useless protest. People in Boston don't like Trump, and they're assembling Stop the Presses. By the way, I think Marjorie, I like the Senate President Spilka. That's not really the issue. The issue is, as Marjorie said, you don't need to study anything.
Yeah.
We know how deep these cuts are. Start filling some of the holes. Maybe discuss whether or not the $1 billion in tax cuts they passed was such a good idea, or rather that money should be used to ensure that services are maintained. It's just act as our position,
by the way,
rather than forming a committee.
The legislature in Massachusetts is the least active in the entire country. We are the slowest about doing anything to that texture. And also, later on, I'm going to talk about what New York State is doing. They're not sitting around forming committees. They're actually doing stuff, including going after Elon Musk and his Tesla plant, which is great. John from Gardner, thank you for calling.
How are you, John?
Hey, good morning. I'm well. I'm an infrequent caller these days, but I do love the show.
Well, we're a big fan of yours too, actually, John, as you know. No, we are. We love you. Go ahead.
I appreciate that. I guess I'm talking to the people that do support this. What we got here is a TV show over here and doing all the stuff that affects human beings over there. The TV show, who's better than Trump and Kristi Noem? Say what you will about her, but she is the best self-promoter going next to Trump. They do all this stuff publicly. I watched that interview with Bret Baier and the Doge team in Musk last week. All the stuff they talk about is systemic stuff. Computer systems not talking to other computer systems. This big cave in, I think it was Pennsylvania, that's got millions and millions of paper documents. We're all for getting that stuff straightened out. None of us would protest that, but they don't talk at all about the stuff that's going to affect human beings in all these cuts that we've been talking about.
Can I also, John, can I comment? We haven't done this on the show. I watched that interview with Musk and the Doge people and Bret Baier.
I was suspicious.
And what he did brilliantly is he surrounded himself with middle-aged, I think all white men except for one, who were major leaders who had accomplished things in the corporate community, and didn't include some of the 20-year-olds that, for example, what's the name of that kid who's heading the Peace Institute now of America after they fired all the people? There's a great story in the Globe this morning about a Harvard kid who was also one of the dissemblers of government under Doge. And so it was a classic misdirection play, which Fox News is brilliant at. Sure.
Sorry. Last night he was on The Five again, being your favorite show, Jim, being interviewed. About there's one person that has stolen 400,000 Social Security identities, and he's hoping that person is going to be arrested this week. So if that's the case, great. Get the person and nail him to the wall. But I want to see if that really is the case, because he throws out a lot of things, like the $8 billion instead of $8 million, that isn't accurate. So thanks, you guys, for taking the call.
John, it's great talking as always. Thank you, John.
The president got up and lied over and over again about Social Security, pretending that people that were 150 years old got Social Security. That wasn't true either. He lied all during that speech about Social Security. But, there is that piece you mentioned, Jim, this guy named Jeremy Lewin. He's a local kid, went to Dartmouth and Harvard Law School, and he's one of the Doge team. He's 28 years old. You could read all about him and what he's doing there. And you're right. I didn't see the 19 and 20-year-olds in that Bret Baier interview. No. Did you?
Well, because it was a great PR thing. And you have to say, I don't know if Trump, Musk, I don't think as well. Trump is a master of deception in terms of his ability to manipulate the press. Musk, I don't think so much. And it's interesting, particularly after Wisconsin, which mattered a lot to Trump, if Musk's profile will be lower. I don't know. In any case.
Well, he's got an awful lot of money, Jim.
That's a very good point. And contributed, what did he contribute? A mere $250 million to the Trump campaign?
Yeah, and he spent $25 million out there in
Do you
Wisconsin.
believe that he was able to give $2 million checks to people, allegedly not because they were supporting the losing candidate for justice there, but because they were against activist judges? What are you laughing about?
Of course, the Massachusetts legislature will form a committee so they can handpick which legislators they want to make an extra $25,000 to serve in the committee.
You only get $25,000 or something if you chair the committee.
Okay,
so they can
if you chair the committee, but you never have to meet. That's the beauty of it. You could chair a committee that never meets. Is that not the case, Jim?
I don't know if this is what it's called, but there's a series in the Globe
and they're
that
all
we've
Democrats,
been borrowing
by the
from.
way.
They are.
90% Democrats.
I think it's called State Secrets or something like that, where Matt Stout, Samantha Gross, a whole bunch of people, not just them, have done brilliant reporting about the underside of the Massachusetts legislature. Check it out.
Yeah, it's very good. Okay, enough of this. We're moving on. We're going to have a sports check-in with NBC Sports Boston's Trenni Casey. If you didn't see it, last night's figure skating championships, last Friday night, I think it was, in Boston on TV, they were awesome.
Did you watch?
I watched them.
Oh,
it was
great.
was so great to see that talent. We're going to talk to Trenni about that. There's a viral dust-up over water sipping at a 105-degree yoga studio. We're going to talk about that, too. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Jared Bowen. Today on The Culture Show, Pulitzer Prize winner Elizabeth Strout has captivated readers and critics alike with a string of best-selling novels set in Maine, where she grew up and now mostly lives. She joins us to talk about her life as a writer and returning to her much-loved characters in her latest book. That and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And the Boston Speakers Series, announcing its 2025-2026 season at Symphony Hall for 7 evenings, featuring Dr. Anthony Fauci, Tipping Point author Malcolm Gladwell, Ken Burns, and conservation photographer Christina Mittermeier. BostonSpeakers.org. And the Massachusetts Office of Travel and Tourism, commemorating 250 years of history, independence, and innovation since the American Revolution. Learn more at Massachusetts250.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Marge Regan, Jim Browdy, live at the library. Streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Before we get to Trenni Casey, I just want to read something. Our friend Laura, who's we've been friendly with, she started listening 20 plus years ago, writes, includes a post and a text to us from what she calls her Wellesley daughter. She came, our friend went to Wellesley. She came from Ethiopia and I was her host mom in college. Her father in Ethiopia was taken by government thugs from their breakfast table when she was in 4th grade. Here's what she writes. This woman. I survived the reduction in force yesterday by the grace of God. Thousands of HHS employees got riffed yesterday. Most of them found out as they entered the building and their badges were not working. I had to line up for an hour and 45 minutes to get into my building because they're doing full searches on all government employees to get to their offices. And this woman who wrote this, her husband was laid off from USAID. In any case, we're joined now by Trenni Casey, anchor and reporter for NBC Sports Boston. Trenni, it's nice to see you.
Hi, guys. Can we give a shout out, though? There was one piece of good news yesterday. How about my home state of Wisconsin?
That's great. We're going to talk about it.
That was great.
It's huge.
And a landslide. It wasn't even close. When I woke up this morning, I was so happy that they didn't disappoint me again.
It was great.
How do you say the opponent's last name?
Schmimmel.
Brad Schimmel.
Schlimmel.
I think it's Brad Schimmel.
Schimmel.
Brad Schimmel.
Schimmel. You know who the opponent? You know how you say his name?
It's
Here's
like
how you say his name.
Whatever.
Musk is how you say his name.
Yeah.
That was the opponent in Wisconsin.
Say his name. Okay.
We can't be bought in the Midwest. Come on.
Beautiful.
So, Trenni Casey, now we're going to turn to the stuff that really, really matters.
Matters to me.
Jim Browdy was very upset about the fate of the tush push
in
the NFL, and apparently the tush push survives for yet another day.
It survives for yet another day. I call this the no update update. They just tabled the conversation. So for those of you who don't know what the tush push is and why Jim has a very invested interest in it, the tush push is a play that the Philadelphia Eagles, which is Jim's
my home team.
does, where they take Jalen Hurts, their quarterback, and instead of just him sneaking himself over the line of scrimmage to get a first down, the offensive line pushes his tush over the line. So in football rules, you cannot pull someone over the line, but you can push them over the line. And my Green Bay Packers, which I was disappointed in them for doing this, they are trying to get the tush push banned. Because, they can't stop it. That's honestly, they're just being sore losers. Figure out how to stop it, or figure out how to execute it yourself with your own quarterback, Jordan Love, or stop complaining about it. But yes, at the league-wide meetings down at the Breaker is a very inexpensive hotel down in Palm Beach, Florida. The ownership groups decided to table the conversations about whether or not this is a rule change until further notice.
Well, just to get you in the mood, though, before we leave this topic, here's a clip from the NFL Network. Sports commentators remarking on my Philadelphia Eagles play the tush push. Here it is.
It's a long way to go on the tush push, but it doesn't matter. They still get it.
It's a long way to go on the tush push.
It's a long way to go on the tush push.
And and we've said this before in the spirit of full disclosure. Occasionally, when I can't get into the office, the staff does the tush push. I'm right in there.
At the front door.
No, I mean,
you have to get 4 or 5 people out
it's not
there
that
and
often, but occasionally they've had to help me.
Yeah, you have a big dinner
that's
the
just
night
like
before.
an HR yellow. That's not like a full-on HR red. It's like an HR yellow.
Okay, so we're going to play some wonderful sound here. This is this alleged social media influencer. Her name is Roma Abdesalam on TikTok, explaining this notorious hot yoga water bottle incident. What happened is she's taking a yoga class, went to get a sip of water, and she'll explain the whole thing. Here she is.
I was in the class and I went to go get a sip of my water. I just picked it up from my mat, and the instructor bullies me, calls me out in front of everyone, and is like, it's not time to drink water. I'll let you know when you can drink water. You drink water when I want you to drink water. I didn't get the memo she was paying my bills, or she paid for me to be in that class. Like, it's a hot yoga class. Of course I'm going to get water. Is this news to you that I would get water at a hot yoga class?
I wish my life was so just lacking in any sort of conflict or real problems that I'm real mad about being yelled at. But
And
this
the
is what
teacher
influencers
lost her
do.
job.
So this is my fault. I suggested the story yesterday.
great.
I was totally sucked in
It's in
by
the
it.
New York
It's in the New
Times.
York Times. So apparently, Bikram yoga, which is what this type of yoga is, which is where you go into a very hot room. Have you guys you've done it, right?
She's a hot yoga
Well, first
woman.
of all, Bikram yoga is done by Bikram, the guy that had to leave the country after all these hail of sexual assault accusations.
charges or
People should be
accusations.
doing Baptiste yoga, which is also hot yoga, but it's not run by a guy that had to leave the country because of sexual assault accusations.
Okay, so either way, whether it's whatever type of yoga it is, hot yoga, hot yoga is, the room's like 100 degrees, you sweat a lot, and apparently part of the benefit of it is that you don't drink water until, so apparently there's 26 poses that you go through in a section, and I discovered this while reading it. You're not supposed to drink water until halfway through. Like, it's something about the purification process and letting your body get, I don't know. I drink a ton of water. I don't know. I'd be mad about it too. When you get to eagle pose and everyone gets to eagle pose and then they're happy because they get to drink water. Well, this woman was just thirsty. So she allegedly.
She's doing it right.
Eagle
Excuse
pose.
me. Can we get a camera on
eagle pose.
Marjorie? She is doing
You don't know
it
what
right
eagle
now.
pose is? It's like this. You can
Excuse
And
me.
you got to
and
have
you?
your foot wrapped around the back.
I would be
only-
in the emergency room.
I can
if
only
did
do
the
it
eagle
on.
pose.
I can only do it on my right side though. On my left side, I'm like not as flexible. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Okay, fine.
So this influencer gets yelled at, and I kind of believe sometimes you go to these yoga classes, and they are very to me. I always liked yoga because it was kind of chill and like. The instructors are sort of hippies and they're really relaxed. Like, this lady sounds a little over the top, and she apparently the instructor claims that she just suggested to the woman that the process is to wait till halfway through. This woman, of course, says that she was shamed in class for drinking water, but now it's become this big thing about her getting shamed for drinking water in a 105-degree sauna while doing yoga.
Yeah.
My favorite part of this
and now
story is
she's
it
in
made it into the New York Times.
New York Times.
I mean, it's just great. It's a
Is
great
it great?
cultural story.
Well,
Yes, it is
the yoga
great.
studio was located on the Upper East Side of Manhattan.
Of course it
Gym,
was.
So that was it. And I guess
But
this
it is
woman a
called,
big-
I guess, like quite the controversy. Like, a woman lost her job, and like the owner of the
know.
yoga studio has had to come out
Should
and
she
talk
have
about
lost
this.
her job for that? I thought that was really terrible.
I mean, I guess I do wonder, have there been other complaints about this yoga instructor? Is this just the first one to go viral?
Excellent
because
question.
it is a and that was not addressed in this New York Times article.
Yeah.
Was it just that this was sort of the tipping point because finally somebody who has, I think she has like 600,000 followers on TikTok or something.
Yeah.
But I guess that's the power of the people.
There you
so
go.
Get out there on Saturday, power of the people.
By the way, before we go ahead, if I may, Zoe, who is one of our coworkers, made I think a good admission. She said, I listed the tush push for Jim as one of my 5 weekly accomplishments for Doge. So at least there's full disclosure, which I really admire in our coworkers. Thank you, Zoe.
Yeah,
hardworking group here.
Yeah,
Try
thank you.
Baptiste yoga. Don't go to Bikram.
Can I ask you a question? I know you're a hot yoga. In all seriousness, what's the
draw?
What is the draw? It's like 100 degrees, right?
Well, you have to like the heat, obviously.
Doesn't Paul Reville go too?
Yeah, Paul Reville used to go a lot. I haven't seen him in a long time.
I mean,
But
people
wait,
love it. People who do
but
it love
why?
it. I think it smells funny.
What?
Well, Bikram has rugs. I wouldn't want to go to a place with. Well, I shouldn't say all Bikram.
But why do you
some.
like it? Why do you like it?
Because it's extremely stress reducing. It exercises every part of your body.
Really?
I used to be a runner. I got sciatica from running. Yoga cured the sciatica.
Really?
It's great. It cures a lot of
But
things.
why the heat, I guess, is what I'm
I
saying.
don't know. I just like it. You are soaking wet when you get through with it, but it's very stress reducing. I love it.
I mean, I've done it before. I just feel like I'm slipping all. Like I have one of those. You have to get like for your mat. You have to get like this special cover over it.
Yeah, you have to
because
get a
you're just like
towel.
dripping with.
You
like
have to get a towel, but you have to
towel.
pour water on the top where your hands are and below where your feet are, and that keeps you from slipping.
Oh.
Yeah.
Can I tell you, our coworkers should be doing the show instead of you and me. They just interpreted when Marjorie said it was stress reducing. Translation, I work with Jim.
That's right. Our staff can attest who's calmer in the morning. Is it me? I should say, is it I, or is it he?
Is it I? That's correct. Between
I
us.
heard your grammar, the grammar segment. Like
She is the queen of
I'm
grammar.
not the queen of grammar. I make a lot of mistakes,
I?
but is it I?
Is it I?
Yeah, it's an intransitive. Everybody says it wrong, but it's an intransitive verb. It is I.
Thank you. Okay.
It's a linking verb.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever it is.
No
All right.
worries. Okay, fine.
It's a good thing I don't have to go. I'm not in school anymore.
Nobody says it that way.
So last week we had the head of the skating club of Boston, who was fabulous. What was the name of the terrific skater? It was
Ashley
second-
Wagner.
Yeah.
She was here. She was fantastic. I talked to her for a little bit afterwards.
Oh, you were here, right.
Yeah, because she does Olympic work for NBC. So
She is fabulous.
She's awesome.
He was impressive. And they hosted, I guess for the second time Boston's had it in 9 years, the World Figure Skating Championships. I watched some tapes after the fact. Did you watch it live?
I watched it live. It was great. The skaters were fantastic. It was so uplifting. It was just, and the place was packed. It was just a great performance. You talked about the Ilya Malinin that does.
Yep.
Yeah, explain what he can do.
So Ilya Malinin is arguably maybe the greatest male figure skater we've ever seen. He can do every single quad jump, including a quad axle, which is 4.5 rotations in the air. And I read in this article that he was actually a little disappointed in how he performed at Worlds because he hit every discipline of a quad jump, but he had a 7th planned and wasn't able to do it or execute it, or for whatever reason didn't, and he was upset. But he is winning by margins that we've never seen in male figure skating before. He is the prohibitive favorite to win the gold in Milan Cortina next year.
He's like 20, right?
He's 20 years old. He's, I think, a sophomore at George Mason University down in Washington, D.C. But I think one of the most touching parts of his story is that it's really like many skaters. It wasn't just the skating club of Boston that was affected by that tragic plane crash. It was at Reagan, right? It was Reagan, right, at Reagan Airport in D.C. Ilya had a number of his teammates on that flight as well. He trains outside of D.C. in Virginia. And so it was a really difficult, a lot of the skaters sort of dedicated their performances over the weekend. But by all intents and purposes, it was a rousing success to have the World Figure Skating Championships in Boston. And the United States showed up 4 gold medals. They swept women's and men's ice dancing and pairs. Did they win gold in all 4?
I don't know.
3 of the 4.
3 of the 4.
The ice dancing and the pairs, I just love it. It's so beautiful. Yeah, I mean, they're unbelievable athletes.
So I love the athleticism of the solo skating, the big jumps and everything. But the woman who won the gold medal on the female side, Alyssa Liu, is another great story. This was a U.S. figure skater who was on a trajectory. I think people thought that she would maybe win gold, and where was her? was Beijing our last Winter Olympics? Yes.
You're the Olympic.
Yes, Beijing. Wait, am I right about that? Yeah, I think I am. Yes, 2022. Beijing, she was supposed to win in Beijing, and she actually stepped away from skating because she just found it to be mentally draining. And then we talked about her on the show, guys. We talked about how she went away and she was skiing. 2 years, went away, walked away from skating, and then she was on a ski trip with friends, and she was gliding down the mountain. She was like, I forgot how fun this is. I miss skating. So she went to her local skating rink and just rediscovered it. And her coach actually tried to talk her out of coming back because he's like, are you sure? And she won gold at Worlds and is now the prohibitive favorite to win gold at the Olympics.
So I have a question for you. The only problem I have with Ilya Malinin is I love the term the quad god until I found out that he's the one that coined it.
I didn't like that either.
Don't call yourself the quad god. Let somebody else call yourself.
In his defense, he was 17 when he did it, and I think when you're 17, you know.
Okay, but that.
If he was 27 and called himself the quad god, I would put him on those dating sites, the don't date him sites.
You know, I was watching the videos. I say I didn't see it live like Margie did, just excerpts. He did a backflip. I have never seen. Scott
Hamilton? Remember Scott Hamilton?
I know who he is.
Scott Hamilton used to. That was but that I don't feel like I've seen that. Full disclosure, I don't watch a ton of figure skating except for really probably the Olympics and the Worlds. So I don't know if it's common. But that was Scott Hamilton's signature, wasn't it, back in the day? I feel like it was.
Speaking of the Olympics, and you said I don't know a lot about skating. When you did, what was the gold medal thing you did in
curling?
Did you know anything about curling before you did it?
So when they hired me to go to Sochi,
that was when the U.S. won the gold.
But my first foray into curling was 4 years prior in Sochi, Russia. In 2014, they had called me in late December or early January, and they had some talent move around. Michelle Tafoya couldn't end up going to Russia for some reason, and so they shifted all these assignments. And they were like, "Hey, do you think you can come to Russia for 3.5 weeks and cover curling?" I was like, "Well, I did a feature on curling once when I lived in Eau Claire." I was like, "But I'm sure I can learn it." And it was so long ago that they sent me DVDs to watch at home. So no, I knew nothing about it. And then but listen, if you watch and you listen to your analyst, you can learn. I mean, if you're reasonably, not super smart or anything.
You tried it too, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah.
Before we went to Pyeongchang, I did a feature with NBC Sports Boston. And we went and I had to curl. I think I went out to...
The country club in Brookline?
Not the country... No, the country club would... I mean, I'm not fancy enough to go to the country club at Brookline.
If you know somebody fancy enough, you can go.
Actually, I have been there once. Friends of mine have been were junior members back in the day, and I think they are still members there.
And they have those huge curling rinks.
But it was summer, so we went to the pool, and I remember... This is completely a tangent off.
Go right ahead.
But I remember wearing a Target swimsuit and cover-up, and I was like, I can never come here again in Target. No one at this place has ever been in a Target. I was like, oh, I had never felt more Midwestern. Every kid had a popped collar Lacoste, polo shirt on, and every little girl was on this perfect little dress, and I was like, you didn't pay for anything? I was like, why don't you pay for anything? And they're like, that's not how it works at a country club. And I was like, okay, I don't know. My family didn't go to country clubs.
Aren't they having the big?
But anyway, I'd love to come back country club.
At the country club?
They're having. They had the big tournament there about 15 years ago. I think they're having another big one.
Well, they had the U.S. Open not last year, but 2 years ago.
Yeah. Okay.
Did your kid play golf there? Where is the Brookline High School?
Brookline High School gets to play golf at the country club.
Isn't that
the country
generous
club in Brookline?
Do they have to be frisked when they go, or can they? Are they just allowed in to play golf?
No, but
are they allowed to wear Target golf polos and shirts?
When the parents all went to go drop the kids off for the tryouts, there were a lot of jokes along the lines that you're making about the country club. And there's this little outdoor booth that you have to go through, and it looks like there's a person in the booth. But then you get close enough, you realize there is no person in the booth.
It's a flat person.
It's a flat person in the booth trying to fool you, so no one goes in.
Listen, I want to make it very clear. If my husband ever comes home and says, we can A, afford to join the country club, and B, we've been accepted, I'm not going to be like, I don't know. That doesn't feel like something I'd want to do. I'll be like, yes, we're doing it.
But I'm there.
Okay, so while you're here, almost every week...
And I will tell you about it 100 times over because I will be cool enough to be at the country club.
Actually, we're not telling our stories, so you can tell yours. So, women's professional rugby. Every week we try to add another women's sport on the rise. Women's professional rugby.
This is interesting.
Professional?
It is professional. It's similar to some of the other professional leagues where, unlike, say, hockey or basketball, you have to still work like a regular day job.
Right.
But what makes this a little different than what we watched in the Olympics, speaking of the Olympics topics, where the U.S. women won rugby sevens bronze. This is rugby.
What's rugby sevens mean?
Rugby sevens is a faster, a little bit, I would say, slightly less physical.
Okay.
Form of rugby because there's only 7 players on the field. This is more traditional rugby. This is rugby 15s, which is sort of what the game of American football grew out of.
Each side is 15 players?
Each side is 15 players.
Okay.
It's like the scrums are a little bit, because there's more people on the field, there's more athletes on the field, the scrums are a little bit more physical. You're kind of pushing through the line. I mean, it's not called the line of scrimmage. I'll be honest. I actually back in the day dated a guy who played a lot of rugby. I should know more about it. But like the pushing and like when you toss the ball to somebody, like there's just more people there to kind of stop you in your tracks and it takes longer to move the ball down the field, essentially.
Okay.
I know, I'm not explaining it very well.
No,
I'm sure
you're
there's
doing it
someone
beautifully.
listening who's like, you're such a dummy, you don't know anything about rugby, but listen, you can't know everything about everything.
Speaking of women's sports, I think it was
But
last
I
year.
will say this, it's great that there is another option for women and that like rugby is growing. Because I'm not sure, to be quite honest, like football, American style football, I just think in our heads, that's gonna be the hardest sport, I think, for women to break through. In terms of a professional level.
We had your former trainer on, who was the quarterback of the women's team.
But we've seen it here in Boston. Like that team is now defunct.
I know that.
Right? And the reason I say that is I just think it's going to take a lot, I think, for people to, one, see the similarities between men and women playing American football versus and I think flag football is a good into that. But rugby, it's not going to look all that different between men and women. And I wonder if because of the rugby sevens, because it's an Olympic sport, it's just going to be easier for people to kind of wrap their brains around women playing that.
I don't know if you know this, but we've talked when Caitlin Clark was playing in the obviously in March Madness for Iowa last year. We talked about how I think were the ratings higher for the women's March Madness than they were for men's. Yeah, what's happening this year? Because we're now in the final 4 days.
I actually sort of wonder if ratings haven't been great overall, because I feel like usually we get some sort of email sent to us like, oh, record ratings, top ratings, like look at all these people who watched opening weekend and this and that. And now that you mention it, I haven't seen a single story about ratings in the NCAA tournament. So
well,
I
the
don't
two
know.
stars, the woman from USC,
Juju Watkins,
who obviously is injured and she's out.
Yep.
But there's Paige Beckers, who
Paige
has
Beckers
been
is in.
superstar-like for UConn.
Yeah, UConn has a chance to be the national champion again. Yeah, she's been amazing. And it was a bummer. So UConn played USC, Juju Watkins' team, to get into the Final Four. And that would have been a more marquee matchup, 2 great stars. But honestly, I don't know about you guys, how much of, I haven't watched a ton outside of the first 2 days of NCAA men's basketball. It's like, okay, so it's all the number 1 seeds. It's all number 1 seeds in the Final Four. I picked Duke to win. Great if you win, but there's no drama. There's no team to me that you can glob onto and kind of root for as the underdog. They're all these big blue blood programs who have a ton of NIL money to give their guys. It's just not the same.
Well, the only plus is a local kid, obviously the kid from Maine,
Cooper Flag.
Duke, Cooper Flag.
Yeah. Well, watch him play now, and then
spectacular.
you'll see him play for whoever gets the number 1 overall pick in the NBA next year.
Okay,
Trenni, nice to see you. Keep us updated on the tush push, please. Okay, thank you.
I can't forget you, James.
I knew you wouldn't.
We've been speaking with Trenni Casey, anchor and reporter for NBC Sports
Thank you,
Boston.
Trenni.
Coming up after the noontime news, we're going to speak with our national security expert, Juliet Kayyem. Tariffs are coming out this afternoon.
More smart conversation about community issues is up ahead with Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan on Boston Public Radio. Right after a news update from NPR. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And M&M Skylights, located in Stoneham, installing and servicing the full range of Velux skylights that can help bring air and more natural light into your home. Skylight consultations can be scheduled at mmskylights.com. On the next Nature, meet the hippo, crocodile, and lion families who must navigate and survive a harsh dry season in Tanzania. Watch Katavi, Africa's Fallen Paradise, tonight at 8 on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, head on Hour 2 of Boston Public Radio, live from the Boston Public Library. A federal judge today formally dismissed the corruption case against New York City Mayor Eric Adams, granting the controversy over that and why it seems to be okay for Trump's national security team not just to use Signal, but Gmail for government business.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then Yale's Jeffrey Sonnenfeld has his finger on the pulse of how CEOs are viewing the moves of Donald Trump. We'll get his take on tariffs as Trump prepares to announce more this afternoon, and how corporate America is and isn't standing up to Donald Trump. That's next on the second hour of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. President Trump is set to announce a raft of new tariffs later today. NPR's Tamara Keith with details.
President Trump has been hyping up this day for weeks, saying tariffs will boost the U.S. economy, even though most economists say the cost of tariffs will be paid by American consumers. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says one of Trump's goals is to build back a domestic manufacturing base in the U.S.
It's simple. If you make your product in America, you will pay no tariffs.
Manufacturing in the U.S., however, is generally more expensive. Leavitt says tariffs will take effect immediately, though Trump has also said he is open to negotiation. So whatever is announced today may not be where the tariffs ultimately land. Tamara Keith, NPR News, the White House.
Liberals have retained their majority of the Wisconsin Supreme Court despite Elon Musk's multi-million-dollar effort to get a conservative on the court. Judge Susan Crawford defeated Judge Brad Schimmel. Chuck Kernbach of member station WUWM reports a battle over the ideological balance of the court signal where voters might stand on national politics.
This race, even though it was the court is nonpartisan, it was definitely a win for Democrats, and they're claiming victory against the president, his administration, and Musk. And I heard that from voters, too. They say Musk's DOGE effort is going too fast, too broadly. From young voters, though, I also heard a lot about reproductive rights, which was the big issue in the last state Supreme Court election we had here 2 years ago.
Chuck Kernbach reporting. Climate scientists in the Southwest say only 2 states, Nevada and Arizona, are doing meaningful work to recycle and reuse water from the drying Colorado River. NPR's Kirk Sigler reports on a new study that comes as 7 states are under federal orders to negotiate a deal to use far less water.
Climate scientists at UCLA crunched numbers from water districts across the 7 western states where 40 million people and countless farms depend on the Colorado River. They found that Nevada is recycling 85% of its total wastewater. Las Vegas, after all, has been internationally recognized for this. But despite a law passed in 2009, California, the largest wastewater producer, only recycles about a quarter. Colorado and its booming population, not even 4%. Scientists say these states are missing a huge opportunity to access more water ahead of a looming deadline of next year when federal regulators could order mandatory cuts if a new water-sharing truce isn't brokered. Kirk Sigler, NPR News.
Actor Val Kilmer's died. He was 65. His daughter confirmed Kilmer passed away yesterday from pneumonia. Kilmer's roots were the stage, but fans are remembering roles in several blockbusters as well, including as Iceman in Top Gun, Batman, Tombstone, and as Jim Morrison in The Doors. From Washington, this is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Suffolk DA Kevin Hayden is slamming ICE for arresting a defendant his office was prosecuting mid-trial. Wilson Martel LeBron was being tried on state forgery charges, but he was taken into custody by federal agents during a court recess last week. At a news conference today, Hayden condemned the arrest.
ICE's recent actions are deeply troubling. We will not stand silent while ICE removes defendants in the middle of a trial.
On Monday, the trial's presiding judge held one of the ICE agents, Brian Sullivan, in contempt of court after he failed to appear for a hearing on the arrest. Hayden says his office could bring charges against Sullivan. ICE is defending the arrest, claiming Martel LeBron is an undocumented immigrant convicted of drug trafficking, whose legal name is Juan Carlos Baez. The agency wants the contempt finding decided in federal court. A quick look at the calendar tells us that today is the first Wednesday in April, and the first Wednesday in April is also National Walking Day. People of all ages are encouraged to get out, stretch those legs, and go for a 30-minute walk. The American Heart Association launched National Walking Day in 2007 as part of its efforts to promote healthy living. Unless, of course, you're the old-timer who walks by my house every day, puffing on a giant foot-long cigar, leaving a locomotive-style stream of smoke in his wake. Today is also Liberation Day, and while it's not entirely clear what that means, maybe go for a walk and give it some thought. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from Drexel University, whose cooperative education program positions students to explore future careers and discover their ideal profession before graduation. This is experiential education. More at drexel.edu.
He is Jim Braude. I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBEH News. I want to mention we have a birthday girl here today. Marilyn is here with her friend. Happy birthday.
Oh, happy birthday, Marilyn. That's
It was her
fabulous.
birthday
Happy
gift to come down
birthday.
here. We're also going to be back here on Friday with live music from the Great Musical Carousel. Next week, we're going to be joined by Michelle Wu for another edition of Ask the Mayor. And next Wednesday, we're going to be joined by Diana DiZoglio for another edition of Ask the Auditor. Hello again, Jim.
And we just found out 2 minutes ago that Maura Healey will join us at the library from noon to 1 on Friday, April 25th.
Great.
So there you go, Marjorie. We're joined now at the desk by national security expert Juliet Kayyem. Juliet's former Assistant Secretary for Homeland Security under Barack Obama, the faculty chair of the Homeland Security Program at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government, and a contributing writer at The Atlantic. Hello, Juliet.
Hello.
How are you?
Good.
Yeah, so Juliet, let's start with New York City Mayor Eric Adams. A judge on Wednesday dismissed the criminal case against him. There were a lot of allegations of taking bribes from Turkey. And what are you laughing
Wednesday, like like today, you mean?
Today.
That's I had
right.
the same thought. I was like,
Did I miss something?
It's today.
Sorry, whatever.
It's today. Yeah. So this is a little distressing, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the judge really called the government's bluff, even though the judge had no authority to keep the case against Eric Adams. And the Biden administration, just to go back, the U.S. Attorney's Office had a number of charges against Eric Adams, mostly corruption and all sorts of other things involving foreign governments. Those charges carried on through the Trump administration. Because the Trump administration wants compliance on a variety of things from New York City, they basically said, well, we want to drop the charges now, but keep open the opportunity to charge him later, basically if he doesn't agree with any of our policy decisions, in particular immigration and immigration enforcement. To be clear, Eric Adams was willing to do this. I mean, the guy is so desperate. I mean, New York, whoever New York chooses next, and I know Cuomo's in there, whatever, like nothing could get worse than this guy.
No, a sexual assaulter is far better.
Yeah, exactly.
Far better
no,
than a
I mean,
sexual
I
know
am
your
telling
point. I
this
got your
guy,
point.
I mean, so they go before the court yesterday or a while ago, and they say, yes, the government says the charges will be dropped, but we want to reserve the ability to refile, but not right now. And the court said, I mean, it was an amazing motion today. It was, I can't force you to continue to prosecute because that's prosecutorial discretion. That's within the U.S. Attorney's Office and the Trump White House and the Trump DOJ. But you don't get to retain the right to refile. He's free and clear. So now Eric Adams basically got everything he wanted. I mean, he doesn't have to abide by anything the Trump White House wants, and the charges are permanently dismissed. Those charges are permanently dismissed.
Can I say something about this that I know is obvious, but I feel the need to say it? There's so much corruption every day that this story is not getting nearly the play. This guy was credibly accused, and a grand jury decided he should be charged for bribery, all this corruption. The trial's at some point going to happen, and he essentially starts celebrating Trump, flying down for meetings with Trump, and the President of the United States tells his Justice Department to drop these charges as long as the mayor of New York City is more loyal to him than he is to the people of New York City. It is just unimaginably horrible. And this alone, had there been any other president in the history of the country who'd done this one thing and nothing else, there'd be calls for impeachment.
Right.
I mean, it is just
for the
staggering.
Attorney General. I mean, the one thing to remember about this Attorney General, Pam Bondi, who I've known for, the first time I met Pam Bondi was during the Pulse killing. Remember
in Orlando,
in
sure,
Orlando,
of course,
she was the Attorney General at the time.
Of Florida.
Florida. And I don't know, 50 gay men were killed, over 50, at this gay bar. And, you know, that she would choose that as an opportunity to reflect on her perceived values about what it means to be a homosexual was shocking. I mean, and the only thing that people say about Pam Bondi that makes sense to me is she wants to be president. And so the way I look at her tenure as Attorney General is she is gunning for the number 2 under Vance, and it makes sense. That's the only way, because she's not doing an investigation of Signalgate. She's not doing an investigation of any of these Elon Musk getting money from whatever. You have to just assume that she is using the Attorney General's office as a campaign strategy. We've never seen anything like it before. But
you know what's unbelievable about her, and it's not just her. I don't know if you've heard on the radio.
What a thought.
Kristi Noem, the head of Homeland Security, has bought commercials saying we're coming for you. These menacing things. What she, Bondi, every one of these cabinet members, Marco Rubio, every other word is President Trump.
Yeah.
President Trump. The sycophancy it's one thing to carry out. He's your boss, his policies, but it is clear that it's playing to an audience of one.
Right.
Is my boss going to hear me say great things about him? And
we're going to get you. I mean, it is. Who talks like this? First of all, stop with the facelifts. I'm just going to say that now. Just everyone stop. I mean, the way that these women are transforming before our eyes, and I mean, and I know this sounds petty, it's not. It's part of that cult status that you have to look a certain way as a woman, you have to talk a certain way as a cabinet official. It's, you know, it's beyond, and as how this ends, no one knows, right? I mean, it is, but you just call it out. And
you know,
and Kristi Noem going down to El Salvador in her, and she wants me to talk about it, so I'm going to talk about it. In a tight white T-shirt and blue jeans she clearly had her hair done, because I have hair like hers and it doesn't look like that normally, and is in front of naked men, prisoners, saying we're going to get you.
With a $50,000 gold Rolex watch.
Yeah.
Speaking of her, we don't have to spend much time on this, but just bears mentioning. She announced yesterday, the Attorney General of the United States, that she was directing the U.S. attorneys in New York to include the death penalty as a possibility for Luigi Mangione, who is the guy who allegedly killed the healthcare executive in New York City not too long ago.
And there's only 3 people remaining on death row. People remember that Biden commuted all death row sentences except for 3,
Dylan Roof,
including
the guy from the synagogue in Pittsburgh, and Sarnaev.
Robert Bauer.
Sarnaev's still on, and so this will be the first under the new Trump administration. So I think they executed during Trump 1.0. I want to say I think they executed close to 20 people during Trump under federal rules.
And can I just say one thing here? I don't mean to gratuitously go after Joe Biden. He did that when he said everybody else on death row will get life in prison without parole. You're either against the death penalty or you're not against the death penalty. And no one is saying that Sarnaev, Bowers, and Roof are not among the worst of the worst. But if you don't believe in the death penalty, then they don't get the death penalty. Right. But for political reasons, he thought it was necessary to split the baby.
Which, can I tell you?
What?
This was the problem with the Biden administration. There would have been half a day of Fox News, and that's it.
Right.
And you could have made a statement that, I don't, the one is either for it or against it. Right?
I just have to tell you that a lot of people are very upset about how things are going, including myself. And
you are?
The thought.
You are?
The thought
I thought you were just
Vance and Pam Bondi. Oh, the next Republican president and vice president. Oh my God, Juliette I hope that doesn't happen.
Okay, Juliet, we've been talking off and on for a week for obviously that infamous call before the bombing of the Houthis in Yemen.
Yes.
By being on that Signal app, apparently nothing is going to happen. Maybe it will. We don't know how long it is. We learned yesterday, was it the Washington Post, whoever broke this story, that Walls, the national security advisor of the president, is actually using a far less secure even than Signal thing, Gmail.
Yeah, because they're reading
to
it.
correspond.
Yeah. It took me a while to figure this out, but I'm Gmailing my girlfriends about when the kids are younger, what are the kids doing this summer? And then all of a sudden, 18 advertisements for summer camps would come up. I'd be like, oh wow, what a coincidence. And I realized they're reading my emails. Yes, look, the hypocrisy is noticeable, given that they ran an entire campaign against Hillary Clinton, who did far less in this regard. But the stupidity in terms of our national security is epic. I mean, it's just stupid. And I don't what's wrong with the White House emails? There's nothing, you can email anyone. I get emails from White House email accounts. It's a carelessness. It's a lack of thoughtfulness for the people that are working for you, for the military, the intelligence agents. We do know that Israel is very angry. The way that at us for the Signal Gate, and it could be that Michael Waltz is still could still get fired. If you look at the Signal Gate rundown on Times, it's clear, because Hegseth shared it, which he didn't need to share, that the Israelis had an asset essentially in the room with the Houthi leadership, because the message is he's with his girlfriend. Now, there's probably two other people who knew that he was with his girlfriend, the driver, say, and, his scheduler. One or the other of them told the Israelis. That's how it happens. That person, I would assume, is dead, right? That asset, because the Houthis are going to figure out who would have known that he was with his girlfriend. It would be a small number of people. And the
I hadn't even thought of that.
Yeah, no, we killed someone. That killed. I have 80% certainty. Now the person is a Houthi terrorist. I'm not going to go crazy over, but he was also an Israeli asset who was willing, because they either paid him or a variety of things, was willing to give the Israelis information.
So what does it mean? I mean, add on top of that story something we've discussed with you and others a lot, is that in light of the prior connections with Assad and Putin, that it's unlikely that other nations are going to be willing to share certain kinds of intelligence with Tulsi Gabbard. Yeah. What does that mean in real terms for our ability to do what we do, undercover?
Yeah. I think there's two different types. Well, I know there's two different types of intelligence. So one would just be sort of generic trends, and I think that will continue to be shared, and good reporters are likely reporting on it. But we're seeing the resurgence of ISIS in this part of Syria. That's where I think it's going to impact, or in terms of our operational capacity, is covert operations or special operations, because that's where you need the detailed sort of sources and methods. I think other countries will be very wary of sharing, especially after this, sharing sources and methods of how they got that information.
So what does that mean for us?
That means that our covert action, real time, this person is there and we want him dead, or that person is there and we want to interrogate him, real-time information is likely to be shared less. Because that puts their people in jeopardy, right? The other stuff, the trend stuff, just means we're monitoring this or that. But if, let's just, random country, United Kingdom, either has an asset, they're paying someone off, or they were able to infiltrate, or they work for a company that's a front, and one of their spies works for a company that's a front and is giving information. They don't want to put that person's life or the information they're getting from them in jeopardy. And that's where I think it's going to have the biggest impact. So I would look to covert operations and special operations as being the most significantly impacted.
We're talking to Juliet Kayyem.
So there's a piece in the Washington Post about the Trump administration going after Harvard University canceling research contracts to end anti-Semitism. There's a great line from a guy who is a teacher out in Nevada, actually University of Nevada at Reno, who said the idea of canceling federal grants and contracts, all of which involve scientific research to root out anti-Semitism at Harvard, is particularly absurd.
Absurd.
Yeah. So
I'm there.
What do you make of it?
What do I think of it? I'm not being careful. I don't know. No, I guess I wish that Harvard's response so far, President Garber gave an email or sent a message out to the community, would have done two things. It would have better stated what that money is for, not generically, but just sort of where is this money going? Because my understanding from the reporting is the Trump administration throws out $9 billion for the headline. The average person is probably saying to themselves, why the heck does Harvard get $9 billion? $8 billion, maybe $8 billion plus, is obviously going to our hospitals,
Mass General, Harvard Medical School,
right? But that's patient care. That's not just research. That's patient care. That's all. That's the clinical trials. It's the and so
that's Harvard teaching hospitals.
Yeah, it's the teaching. It's feeding a health apparatus that if one cared about the health of Americans, you would care about. The other billion, and I'm being careful because I don't know the exact breakdown, but then the other part goes to say, sponsorship of academic efforts at the university outside the medical and health realm. So I wish that we had made that clear. Specifically, get the numbers, because we couldn't possibly have been surprised that this was going to happen. I wish the letter had stated the equities of Harvard University and its contributions more explicitly, because we cannot assume that the brand is liked. It is not liked, and we have to start narrating why an institution like Harvard, like any academic institution, is relevant in today's society. And then I would have ended much more, we're not bending, but I don't know if that's the strategy.
Well, can we talk about that? Can we talk about that for a second here? Well, I am in the midst of a debate with a very good friend of both of ours about how these university presidents should be responding.
Yeah.
For example, what is the appropriate response of the Tufts president vis-a-vis Ms. Ozturk?
Yeah.
Is it better not to criticize Trump in the hopes that she'll be freed from this prison in Louisiana, or do you go at it? And the problem, one can make a case, credible case in every instance, whether it's Garber, the interim president of Harvard, or all these other presidents, maybe not including the incredibly pathetic former president of Colombia, and that capipulation over the 40.
Yeah, see how that helped her?
Yeah, exactly. She's gone, by the way, for those who don't know. She left last week.
Which is the point.
But while you can make the case that in an individual case, the best thing for your particular institution or that student who was disappeared to Louisiana is to not criticize Trump, if everybody decides to just reply on the merits when he's not operating on the merits, it's an invitation for Trump to continue doing exactly what he's doing.
Guess what?
And he's doing it.
Columbia hasn't gotten their money back.
The $40 million?
Yeah.
$400 million.
$400 million, because it matches what Columbia didn't pay Trump 30 years ago.
So how do you feel about that? You advise a lot of people.
Excuse me. Also the fact that they keep playing into this being about anti-Semitism, which is
that was going to be my last point, which is, why are we buying into their narrative? So I teach crisis management. I actually changed my class yesterday and took his letter, and we taught it. I understand from a crisis, because this is a crisis for the university. The president is just buying himself time. I agree. But to spend maybe, if it's 10 paragraphs, 8 of them are about anti-Semitism. Why are we buying into that narrative? Because we know it's not about that.
Because they think they can reason with Donald Trump.
They can't reason with Donald Trump. And I don't know what drugs are these institutions on. Let's just, I keep saying, everybody in the arena, everybody. This is not a time to think that you can placate this group, right? Look, Harvard University thought that they could placate Trump because they hired Susan Wiles, his chief of staff. She has a big lobbying firm in Florida. They hired that lobbying firm to represent Harvard. I think they're paying $100,000 a month. I don't know. And look what that did them. Nothing will placate this beast because he needs the culture wars. He is not going away. And I don't have any control over what Harvard is going to do. But I will tell you, in a class of 100 students, 2 were happy with that announcement. You've lost the students, you've lost a lot of the faculty. Start defending your equities.
Well,
Don't buy into the narrative of anti-Semitism. Don't buy into the numbers, the headline grabbing numbers. Start asserting yourself, man. I mean, honestly, like, if we don't do it, who will? That's my plea.
Can we talk about this for one more minute here? Jeffrey Sonnenfeld is going to join us in a few minutes from Yale School of Management. And he, one of the pieces I think he wrote for the New York Times, he talked about there should be collective action from corporate leaders. What I don't understand, we started discussing this with Khalil Gibran Muhammad, who's now at Princeton. And Princeton's being attacked too, by the way. We'll talk to him next time about it. It is, when I was a union president, I used to say to individual workers, you alone can't deal with this, but all of you can deal with this. That's rank and file, ordinary people doing ordinary work. The fact that there is not one high-profile elite university president who stands up and says, and then they wonder, every one of the Ivy Leagues, every one of the Seven Sisters, if they're still called that, every university on the East Coast, president or provost, should be at a press conference tomorrow saying, we're not taking any more of this crap.
And then they wonder, and they fold, and then they wonder why people question what their relevance is. If your core mission is independence of thought, honesty, and I will add patriotism, right? Why can't we say we're patriotic? We are contributing to bettering America in all sorts of ways, and we're not telling that story. We're not telling
history is not going to remember these people well. I'll tell you.
That's what. And even if you placate, like Columbia, she's gone by this weekend. They don't have the money back. I have lots of.
They're talking about getting rid of
I'm data-driven here. I see lots of stuff going on, and none of it can rationally get you to the moment where you think you can manage this, because it doesn't want to be managed. His MO is Trump's is all of this. So I have no control. These are my personal thoughts as being there, but I just, as it was interesting to me because I decided I wanted to teach this because like my institution is now, in a crisis about its disruptiveness. I mean, about its core mission is, yes, maybe you want to buy time, but have that buying of time lead you to a moment where you're defending our equities, because no one is. Right?
And by the way, Elise Stefanik, who's been snatched back from going to the UN because Trump is worried about having enough.
My one little news pleasure headline last week. That was like the only thing that made me smile.
But she is going after the new interim president, Claire Shipman, saying she hasn't been enough with the CNN program too. So she's probably
it's not going away. It's a 4-year fight, possibly longer, depending on what happens. But like the idea that we're catnip, the universities, the media, the law firms, we are catnip to a very unpopular president whose popularity has gone down 7 percentage points each month he's in power, who has a tariff plan that no one can quite get. We're going to feel a lot of the impact of it this summer with travel and tourism and all sorts of things impacted. He is wildly unpopular, and if you put up a front, you're going to be in court anyway. Sometimes they back off. Anyway, I love my alma mater. I love my institution, but
I am stunned by this.
Defend us.
Well, I will quote Khalil Gibran Muhammad one more time when we said to him a couple of weeks ago, "Why don't the Ivy League presidents just meet and discuss this?" And he said, "Because if they met, they'd have to do something." Yeah. And they just don't want to do anything.
It's time.
I'm incredulous.
It's time. And you'll say, and. The word anti-Semitism has been hijacked by the Trump administration, and Harvard needs to call them out on it.
Thank you, Juliet.
Juliet Kayyem, it's good to see you. Bye.
Personal capacity.
We've been speaking with Juliet Kayyem, former Assistant Secretary for Homeland Security. Just spoke in her personal capacity as Juliet Kayyem about her alma mater, where she also teaches at Harvard University. She was Homeland Security Assistant Secretary under Barack Obama, Faculty Chair of Homeland Security at Harvard's Kennedy School, and a contributing writer at the Great Atlantic magazine, which has had a banner week. Up next, it's Trump's theme park, and we're stuck in the roller coaster. More tariffs expected to be announced later today. We'll speak with Yale's Jeffrey Sonnenfeld about the corporate response, cowering or courage, to the first months of the second Trump administration.
Spring has sprung. It's the perfect time to go outside and dive into a great book, like King of Ashes by S.A. Cosby.
That's a Southern crime drama inspired by The Godfather. You know, there's like an ailing patriarch, a family that's falling apart, and a son just to come back and pull everything together.
I'm Ari Shapiro, fiction for spring on the next All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Newport Mansions, protecting, preserving, and presenting an exceptional collection of house museums and landscapes in one of the most historically intact cities in America, Newport, Rhode Island. Tickets at newportmansions.org. And Bridgewater State University, helping create jobs for Massachusetts. BSU's skilled graduates are recruited by today's industry leaders, elevating business in Boston and beyond. bridgew.edu/elevate.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browdy live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. An hour of Mayor Wu. She'll be with us next Tuesday. The audit for Ask the Mayor. The auditor will be with us the following day. And Governor Healy will be with us for an hour on April 25th, which is a Friday, from noon to 1 to answer your questions and ours. Joined now on Zoom by Jeffrey Sonnenfeld. He's a Senior Associate Dean for Leadership Studies and Lester Crown Professor of Leadership Practice at Yale School of Management. We last spoke with him when his team published names of companies pulling out of connections with Russia, obviously after the invasion of Ukraine, and those who were not pulling out of them in the immediate wake of that brutal invasion. Remember, that was when a majority of Americans and the president actually cared about the people of Ukraine. Today, he's back at it on Trump's so-called Liberation Day. The tariffs will be announced at 4 o'clock today to discuss major corporate leaders not speaking out against Trump 2.0 and when they might change their tune. And interestingly, this comes just after minutes after we talked to Juliette Kayyem about university leaders not speaking out when they're under assault, too, by the Donald Trump administration. Jeffrey Sonnenfeld, great to see you as always.
Well, it's great to see you, Jim. It's an honor. And Marjorie, I'm delighted to join with you as well. And I'm especially honored now that I hear, once again, you have a great galaxy of stars coming in from Governor Healy to Mayor Wu. You're slumming it together to go down to Yale for a day.
Are you kidding? Are you kidding?
No, he's right. We're slumming it to talk to Jeff.
I don't think so. I don't think so. We were just busy trashing Harvard. So thank God you're from Yale and not from Harvard.
I did spend 18 years behind enemy lines at the Harvard.
Okay, well, let's start with this great piece you wrote for the New York Times talking about businesses maybe standing up to what the Trump administration is doing. What'd you say?
Thank you. The argument in there, and it's all fact-based, is that the U.S. business community, especially the major companies, with the handful of those oligarchs that we have seen circle around them at inauguration, none of them, including the oligarchs other than Musk, supported Trump's candidacy. Throughout history, going back to the founding of the Republican Party with Abraham Lincoln, the overwhelming majority of the U.S. business community has supported the Republican, has supported the GOP candidates in every presidential election. Until 2016, when Trump won, it fell to zero. And also in 2020, there was two, and in 2024 it was zero until Musk parachuted in the summer after the horrific near shooting in Butler, Pennsylvania, near assassination. So they've not supported him, but they did rally in December and January out of perhaps self-interest to try to negotiate strategic positions for their companies. They did not surrender, though, their social agendas to him. And some of them had a patriotic support, wanted him to be as successful in the interest of the country as he could be. But they squandered that goodwill. Same thing happened in 2017. They didn't support him, but they rallied and he squandered it. We see it happening right now. We just had an event 2 weeks ago with 100 top CEOs. Right after our event, those same people went to the Business Roundtable and they sat there mutely, like in church pews, bowing and nodding to President Trump, genuflecting as he spoke. At our event, they were open with members of the administration, hugely critical. 85% of them said that the trade practices are a fiasco, and some 94% of them say he's taking the company off a cliff into a recession needlessly.
So that was that Yale CEO caucus that you helped organize. So if one of those CEOs who was trashing Trump's policies in your meeting and then was on bended knee at the Business Roundtable meeting was here, and we say, why'd you say one thing privately and another thing publicly? What would that hypothetical person say, Jeff?
The hypothetical person would say, Jim, that's an unfair characterization. I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything positively, he would or she would say, in support of Trump's economic agenda or social agenda. They would say that there are unfair trade practices and selective, as President Biden had, selective tariff issues make sense in certain industries, some issues in semiconductor and frankly, even in aluminum and steel. Canada's not completely in the right. There's been like 1,000% ramp up in the imports of steel from Canada. They haven't had 1,000% increase in production. They are washing through Chinese, European, and frankly, I think even, I hate to admit it, but a little bit of Ukrainian steel, Russians coming in. So that's some things need to be addressed. But it isn't this across the board 20% or anything reckless that he's doing right now. They don't support it, and they have spoken out individually. Nobody. Mary Barr of General Motors, her counterpart at Ford, the CEO of Alcoa. I mean, I could give you a long list of them who've spoken out publicly condemning this. The head of the National Association of Manufacturers, which is a guy named Jay Timmons, has been a very conservative business group, far more conservative than the Business Roundtable throughout history, representing thousands of manufacturers. They have openly condemned Trump's policies. So it's been out there. So some media pundits that haven't reported it haven't been listening. They've spoken out more than any other stakeholder group, more than the clergy, more than trade union leaders, more than campus voices, as you point out. These are all the people who led social change in the 1960s and 1970s, are all those stakeholders. If we want stakeholder democracy to function in terms of corporate governance, those are the people who own the companies. These CEOs, they're just paid hired hands. They're well-paid hired hands, but they serve at the pleasure of the boards who want to make sure that they are placating their owners. If their owners are quietly cowardly, as we are on campuses, we're cowardly, and we are, and frankly, the clergy. I'll tell you a little secret. Tomorrow afternoon, 80 national clergy are meeting for a soon-to-be announced, I guess just now announced, meeting to speak in outrage over Trump policies. The only agreement they could get is on sanctuary cities. The whole rest of the Trump agenda, the churches are too split, and it's really a shame. It wasn't like that in the 60s and 70s. We see cowardice in every sector of society, but less of it in the business community, where we're seeing some courage.
I have to say, I plead guilty to what you were accusing people in the media of doing before. I follow the news fairly closely, Jeff, and I have to say I didn't know about Mary Barra until I read your piece or read about your meeting. And maybe, I guess my position would be, maybe they're saying what they say strategically, but when you compare, at least my recollection of Trump 1.0, and when even people like Elon Musk resigned from some presidential advisory committee because he was concerned, I think it was about withdrawal from the Paris Climate Accords, it seems to me the courage of the corporate community 8 years ago was exponentially higher than it is now. Is that an unfair characterization, do you think?
It is unfair because there were trigger events that were, right now we're seeing a slow drip of horrific things happening. We're seeing basically, since the Trump administration has come in, he's destroyed $7 trillion of market value. Yeah. He's destroyed more than it would take to support the NIH plus Ukraine war for the next 90 years. It's the entire U.S. economy for a year he's destroyed in terms of market value. The CEO, but these are happening in small doses. He's taking on the defense industry. Anybody who says that Trump and Musk are trying to make America stronger, obviously not. Attacking the military, attacking the CIA, attacking the FBI, attacking our own cybersecurity protection and the foreign interference task forces. These are drip by drip, but it's adding up. And right now, that's why we're seeing doesn't get reported because there is a narrative that the media likes, not to blame the media, but to blame the media. There's a convenient narrative to blame these oligarchs because they are so thoroughly unlikable. But that's not who most of these CEOs are. And yes, they did walk off the President's Advisory Council, and they, I think, he's not tried to reinstate that. It's the first time in American history that these CEOs have said no to the commander-in-chief. Was in 2017, and they've not returned. He doesn't try to reassemble them now because they wouldn't come.
You know, I know you're not a psychiatrist, but you talked about losing $7 trillion in the economy. Trump is very interested in money. Why do you think he's doing this?
I can't believe you set me up for that, Marjorie. You have. Are we on for another 2 hours?
2 hours.
Because that is such a great question. It takes me back to the evil Harvard Business School. There on the Soldiers Field campus, one of my great colleagues, in fact, he was a mentor as I got all my degrees from there too, is a guy named Abraham Zalesnik, who was a psychoanalyst. He was the president of the Boston Psychoanalytic Society and a management scholar. He explained this, as there are entrepreneurs like Musk and Trump, and not to be too psychoanalytic, but you brought it up, is that anchored in Freud, there's something that's called a self-destructiveness of great entrepreneurs. Freud called it a death wish, but I wouldn't say that on air. It was that, if you ever seen a kid build a sandcastle and knock it down?
Yes.
Certain kids like to build and then destroy. And the reason they're motivated by this psychoanalytically is they've had just a god-awful relationship with a parent that diminished them. Trump and Musk had fathers that were very animal. So they're trying to prove, and they get like megalomania. The power is off the charts until they blow themselves up, and they're taking us all off the cliff because he's trying to prove his greatness in ways that are self-destructive.
By the way, before we continue,
That was
Jeffrey
a great
Sonnenfeld
explanation, actually, Jeffrey. I love that.
from Yale School of Management, the New York Times is reporting is that Amazon is said to be making a bid to buy TikTok in the U.S. ahead of the Saturday deadline. According to the Times, the bid came via an offer letter addressed to Vance and Howard Lutnick. Lutnick is the Commerce Secretary. I'm sorry, Marjorie.
No, I was just going to say, in the piece that you co-wrote in the Times that we're talking about, you talk about the revenues that these big S&P 500 companies earn outside the United States, and a fear that the long-term declines in their company are going to be long-term. So talk a little bit about that.
Well, there are some particular examples of this, and it comes back to the pointed question that Jim gave me at the opening, which was why CEOs are individually not speaking out more, even though I'm arguing they have spoken out a lot, is they're best, most effective through collective action. And this gets to your question, Marjorie, is when they speak out individually, you wind up with retribution, vindictiveness. There's trade retribution, Marjorie, to your point, where a lot of CEOs found that they're cut off by critical international markets. For example, Harley-Davidson, because of the trade sanctions last round, the CEO there, Matt Levitich, found that 100% of his bikes, 100% were produced not just in North America, produced in the United States. He couldn't send them any into Canada because of the retaliation from the EU, because of what Trump was doing with washing machines or whatever. So he had to open up a factory in Thailand to get it product into Europe and shut down one in Kansas City. What did Trump say? He said, don't buy Harleys. Harley is only 2 to 3% of the global motorcycle market. All the competition is non-U.S. The average, Harley drivers they lean somewhat MAGA. His workforce, by the way, leans somewhat non-MAGA. So he was trying to navigate a nonpartisan approach as the CEO. His stock plummets and he loses his job because Trump says to buy the competition. So this is the risk individual companies face. When Trump went after Delta Airlines because Delta courageously, their CEO, Ed Bastian, stood in support of a protest over the Georgia election law, which you don't have, I know, time to get into, but there were some very scary aspects of that law, despite voter turnout. And they spoke out boldly. So Trump went after them. So I called the chairman of American Airlines. I shouldn't admit this publicly. And I called the CEO of United Airlines. Would they provide air cover for Delta? They did. And so did 98 other companies because they were showing in defiance of Trump trying to divide and conquer. But is that whether or not it's the Republican Party, business community in general, NAFTA, the EU, Canada or Mexico, or the clergy, you can't speak out individually. To take down a bully, it has to be through collective action. And that's what they keep forgetting. And this is what the law firms missed. When Brad Karp of Paul Weiss tried to rally support for the two firms that were attacked, Perkins Coie and Covington Burling, all he did was he jumped above the radar line and made himself a target. So they went after his firm, Paul Weiss. Where is honor among lawyers? Not a lot of it. One of them, they're trying to poach him. One of his major firms, believe it or not, he got a misdirected email from the chairman of one of his competitors at 4 a.m. saying, let's target Brad's major partners and clients because they might be looking vulnerable right now. And he got copied the message by
Wow.
Sounds like the Signal chat there.
Yes,
Jeffrey
wasn't even on
Sonnenfeld.
Signal, exactly.
So,
They're
Jeff,
not even-
Jeff, I'm so glad you brought up the collective action thing, because we talk about this almost every day in lots of contexts. And by the way, I meant to say this before. In defense of the media, not us, because we are probably guilty as you charge.
We're always guilty, Jim.
When the highest profile people in the business community and the ones whose names are best known by the average person are sitting behind Donald Trump at his inauguration, it's not unreasonable for the average person to conclude, I think, that the business community is, in fact, on bended knee. But regardless, I want to get back to collective action. We were just talking to Juliette Kayyem a couple of minutes before you, and we have this discussion almost every day, starting well before Columbia's finances were attacked, and then Harvard's, and now Princeton's, and whatever. Why do you elite or any university presidents not get what you're talking about? Is maybe one-on-one, it's not good to be attacking the Trump administration's attack on your funding and academic freedom and everything else, but collectively, it might be a pretty powerful force for him to deal with. Why is there so little of that in the academic community in which you've lived your whole adult life?
You meant this to be a focus question, and I'm just going to blunt it for a second, and not because I'm going to sidestep the campus issue, but just said what you said about the CEOs, and then made an assertion, said putting that aside. I'm not going to let you put it aside.
Okay.
It's very, very quickly, is you are right. It's Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk out there. Those oligarchs who control their companies that are mega billionaires are not the average CEO. They're not even the average major CEO. Those people, they're hired hands. These people are not. These people control their companies. But they have become symbolic of the U.S. business community, but it's not them. There's an important distinction. But now moving on to the campuses, something has swept through like a disease of college campuses, which is an institutional neutrality statement. It comes from something that the University of Chicago created in 1967 because they didn't want to take a position on the Vietnam War, environmentalism, or civil rights. Because we had other campuses like Notre Dame and Yale and Berkeley that were out front, and up your way, Brandeis, that were the college presidents were leading the charge. So they were trying to figure out a way to opt out, saying, oh, we just want to be a repository of all voices. Universities shouldn't have a voice. Our constituents are so diverse. Baloney. They're no more diverse than any other institution. They're all diverse. Doesn't mean a president or a CEO can't speak out. And the university boards have been sequentially adopting that, which is shameful. Yale's does not have that. Harvard
does.
Somewhat, but Harvard, between us, has an emergency board meeting this weekend at 3 o'clock, and I think that's going to come up as their attack. But I didn't tell you this.
Okay, thank you, Jeff.
We got 3 scoops
that's
already.
That's why we love
here.
this guy. Go ahead, Jeff. I'm sorry.
I'll tell you one more, which I am going to regret.
Yes.
We're pulling together. I'm not going to say who they are, but we have 50 college presidents coming together for a meeting this weekend on Zoom. So don't Zoom bomb.
You're getting applause here at the library, Jeff Sonnenfeld.
Just as a quick aside, I don't know if you know this, Jason Stanley. He's also at Yale. He's been at Yale for a long time. He's a Jewish guy. He talks about how this is an anti-Semitic attack on anti-Semitism, and he talked about how he is leaving with his ex-wife and their children to go live in Canada because he said in this piece in Vanity Fair, I want to live in a place that is free. He called the authoritarian regime already arrived here in the United States, which was really upsetting.
Well, also with Jeff's colleague, Tim Snyder, the guy who wrote on tyranny, is making a trip too.
That was a very upsetting piece to read. I don't know if you saw it.
I did see it. Jason Stanley, his wife, who I've gotten to know more recently, his ex-wife, and certainly Tim Snyder and his wife, Marcy Shore, are all good friends of mine. And they're making a big mistake. Nobody's asked me about this, as I've not commented on it publicly. I think their motives are confusing to us. There has been I'm just one of many to be a perfect specimen as evidence. There's been no restriction on freedom of expression. I have a mini deanly title. I don't use that title when I speak to the media. I just use the title of being a professor or running my institute, and that's fine because I don't claim to speak for the institution. But neither do they. They're chaired professors. They have, one of the top 5 most wealthy endowed universities in the world. They don't get one nickel of public support. They in no way faced any endangerment. I think they're trying to make a symbolic statement that, frankly, is regrettable. We have colleagues that don't have their resources to leave. They are fully funded by NIH or other government grants that are now losing all their resources. They don't have the same ability of those political scientists and theorists to hop around. And I think it's a huge mistake, and it's almost an insult to our colleagues that are not mobile for them to get that sort of attention needlessly when there are people who could use the attention that are truly suffering from government moves. We should stay here and fight. There was a time when we had, in the 1950s, there were about 10 or 12 FBI agents on the Harvard campus every day dragging out faculty. We had 8 here. I've just gone through the archives and seen that. In the 50s to the McCarthy era, and McCarthy had called Harvard the Kremlin on the Charles and things. We're not facing anything like that right now. The universities are certainly not complicit. So that was a huge mistake for them to do that, and frankly, it's embarrassing.
Well, let me ask you a question. We're running out of time here, but what do you want to prognosticate? What do you think is going to happen down the road? You talked about these meetings of the university presidents. I guess the clergy is not doing much in your estimation, but the business leaders, do you think that we're going to collectively fight back?
Well, we're seeing that even small business confidence has plummeted. The National Federation of Independent Businesses are a lot more conservative than the Business Roundtable. Even their confidence has fallen by 50%. Consumer spending has fallen more than it did any time since COVID. We're going back to more than 30 years ago, like a 32-year high with inflation expectations, and consumer confidence overall has plunged. Spending has, by almost 30%. Spending everywhere is plunging. So the CEOs, out of self-interest, are going to be speaking back more and more. And yes, and I do think we're going to hear the echo of The Apprentice pretty soon, where Musk is going to hear "you're fired" by Trump, as Trump is going to try to offload and blame a lot of this on Musk. But right now, you've heard of meme stocks. The stock market, with especially if you talk about Teflon.
Tesla, yeah.
Is Tesla? It should be called Teflon. The stock should be down a lot more, given that we have seen the very best markets. It's only down 12% in sales, and much of the world it's down 60 to 70%. Tesla should be plunging right now. The fact it's not falling more is stunning. But you've heard of meme stocks, but this is almost like a meme economy. I hate to drive the market down more. I'm heavily invested in U.S. equities, but frankly, they're going to plunge a lot, I believe, after this afternoon, depending on what he wanders into. The companies can't reposition themselves by him changing his tantrum tariffs every 10 minutes.
Jeffrey Sonnenfeld, could you come back next week and share some other undisclosed information with us and our listeners?
If you get me a chair there, I'll be up there full time.
Jeff Sonnenfeld, as always, we really appreciate your time and your thoughts. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for your great work, and thank you for taking the time to be with us. We really appreciate it.
I'm honored, and I'm saying hi to the mayor for me.
Oh,
we will do that.
We have been speaking with Jeffrey Sonnenfeld, a Yale School of Management professor, where he's Senior Associate Dean for Leadership Studies, and we very much appreciate his being with us. Up next, it's time for 2 more things. I kind of got that. I went too long, Jim, but
it's okay.
You can rush. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
An apartment complex in Charlestown is trying to evict a group of tenants who say they haven't violated their leases.
They're just making things up. It was the dog, it was the window, it was the smoke.
They just don't like my appearance. To them, I just scream black thug or gangster or whatever.
Society still judges us as formerly incarcerated people. It's a life sentence for us sometimes.
I'm Paul Singer. Find that story online at gbhnews.org.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And New England Recovery Center, providing inpatient addiction treatment in state-of-the-art facilities located in Westboro, Mass. Learn more at newenglandrecoverycenter.org or by calling 1-877-MY-REHAB. And Moonbox Productions, presenting Crowns, a powerful musical mixing gospel, jazz, and a whole lot of attitude. Opens April 11th at Arrow Street Arts in Cambridge. Tickets at arrowstreetarts.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Marjorie said I can rush. So I'm Jim Browning. She's Marjorie. We're the library streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Time for 2 more things. Go ahead, Marjorie.
Oh, no, you have to go first.
Oh, you want me to go first?
Go ahead.
Okay, actually, thank you. That's good. Finally, strong, principled responses to Trump and Musk. First, New Jersey Senator Cory Booker, as you all know, breaking the record for the longest speech on the Senate floor in American history. Here's just a little tiny piece of his 25 hours and 4 minutes, pleading for Americans to stand up and against the Trump administration and to uphold the Constitution. Here's Booker.
This is our moral moment. This is when the most precious ideas of our country are being tested, where the Constitution, and the question is being called, where does the Constitution live? On paper or in our hearts?
I love that line, on paper or in our hearts. He wasn't reading from a telephone book like a lot of other legendary long speeches on the floor, but he did 2 memorable things to me. In 25 hours, laid out the case against Trump's assault on the best of America in great detail, and more beautifully, he eclipsed the record of segregationist Senator Strom Thurmond, who filibustered for 24 hours and some against the civil rights law in the late 1950s. Second principled uprising, Wisconsin, as we discussed with Trenni before. Well, Musk learned yesterday, money can't buy you love. Well, maybe it can buy you love. It can't buy you an election, at least in Wisconsin. As we know, as the liberal Democratic judge prevailed in that Wisconsin race where cheesehead Musk spent $25 million. She appears, by the way, the judge seems to be a solid figure, but my analysis is it was more an anti-Musk's dismemberment of government vote than anything else. So maybe these 2 are outliers, the voters of Wisconsin and Senator Booker. For at least one day, a senator stood up for the values we used to embrace in this country, and so did the voters of Wisconsin, and here's to many more like them.
Okay, you were talking before about us not doing that much in Massachusetts to fight back. Well, up in in New York State, Democratic leaders and the governor there are going after Donald Trump already. And here's what they're doing, my favorite one of all, to stand up to Musk and Trump. Just today, Democratic legislators introduced a bill aimed at Mr. Musk and the so-called Buffalo Billion Project, where the state spent almost $1 billion to build and equip this plant that Mr. Musk's company leases for $1 a year to operate this solar panel and auto component factory. This is reporting from the New York Times. The bill would require the audit of the state subsidy to deal with possible waste, fraud, and abuse. They're sort of turning the tables. Right. And if they find that the Tesla plant is not in compliance and the solar plant is not in compliance, they could claw back the money. Here's what one of the state senators up there said. This is the height of hypocrisy that Elon Musk, the man who's dismantling federal agencies and doing enormous damage on the basis of wildly unsubstantiated claims of waste, fraud, and abuse, is the beneficiary of one of the shadiest subsidy deals of all time. Tesla and Elon Musk, or I should say Tesla, did not immediately respond to emails seeking comment.
Great story.
I love that.
Good day.
Okay, so up next, we're going to be talking, with Sy Montgomery up next.
Thank goodness.
After the news break. We're going to be talking about the latest on sharks, spiders, seals, and Great Danes. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public...
GBH News that just wouldn't be possible without listener support. So, while you're listening, consider pitching in $10 or $20 a month as a GBH sustainer and help make it all happen. Give at gbhnews.org.
Support for GBH comes from you
and the University of Massachusetts Amherst Mount Ida campus in Newton, connecting students and employers in Greater Boston and offering on-campus graduate and pre-college programs. Learn more at umass.edu/Mount Ida campus. And the Massachusetts Office of Travel and Tourism, commemorating 250 years of history, independence, and innovation since the American Revolution. Learn more at massachusetts250.org.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
Fix be the thing just finally set you over the edge, or your avocado toast. The Avocado and You next on the third hour of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. President Trump is rolling out new tariffs. He is expected to offer details 4 p.m. Eastern today. NPR's Danielle Kurtzleben has more on what could be affected.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt showed reporters a graphic of all kinds of tariffs on U.S. goods, and one example was Mexico's 150% tariff on American alcohol. So a reciprocal tariff in this example could be the U.S. imposing a 150% tariff on Mexican alcohol. Now, again, I want to stress this is just a hypothetical I'm giving, but in this example, that would mean U.S. importers would pay a 150% tax to bring that alcohol into the country.
NPR's Danielle Kurtzleben reporting. Democrats won a key judicial race in Wisconsin, and Republicans won 2 special elections in Florida. NPR's Domenico Montanaro says the results are giving Democrats some hope and Republicans some cause for concern.
The win in Wisconsin for Democrats was big because it saw the most spending for any judicial seat in history, and it became something of a referendum on Elon Musk. Musk spent roughly $20 million to support the conservative judge in the race and even made an appearance in the state. His agenda of sweeping federal cuts has been unpopular, and this result is a warning sign for the party not to embrace them too tightly. Republicans won the Florida House seats by double digits, but Democrats significantly cut into the margins in these deeply conservative districts. You don't want to overread results of special elections, but the party that consistently overperforms in them usually does well in the next midterm elections. Domenico Montanaro, NPR News, Washington.
The United Nations says one of its healthcare centers in the north of Gaza that was being used as a shelter for displaced Palestinians was struck by the Israeli military today. It says there have been reports of 15 people killed, including children, casualties the UN could not independently verify. The Israeli military says Hamas militants were using the building as a command center. NPR's Hadil Al-Shalchi with more.
The United Nations agency responsible for Palestinian affairs, also known as UNRWA, said that its workers were managing the shelter in Jabalia, north of Gaza City, when the Israeli strike hit. The agency said none of its workers were hurt and that it had shared the building's coordinates with the Israeli military. The Israeli military said Hamas militants were using the building as a central meeting point for organizing attacks. The healthcare center was turned into a shelter for 160 displaced Palestinian families. UNRWA says despite the strike, many displaced families have not left the site simply because they have nowhere else to go. Hadil Al-Shalchi, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
Elon Musk's Tesla is reporting a 13% decline in sales in the first 3 months of this year. Company experiencing the slide even after offering a number of incentives. However, we see Tesla shares are up more than 4% this hour. This is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. The MBTA wants riders to weigh in on what projects it plans to spend money on over the next 5 years. As GBH's Jeremy Siegel reports, the T released its nearly $10 billion capital investment plan this week, and it's asking for public input at a meeting tomorrow.
The capital investment plan puts a focus on modernizing the T's subway system and increasing its safety and reliability. Transit experts say that's all hugely important, but they're disappointed the plan doesn't go further. The state's former transportation secretary, Jim Aloisi, says the T should be investing more money in improvements to the commuter rail.
One sure way to reduce traffic congestion is to get people who can have a choice out of their car and onto regional rail. And they're not going to do that unless we have a regional rail system that functions like a world-class modern system.
Aloisi also says the commuter rail should be electrified, and he'd like to have seen more money put toward a connection between the red and blue lines. Jeremy Siegel, GBH News 89.7.
Boston Mayor Michelle Wu on track to roll out her budget proposal for the next fiscal year next Monday. Wu says she's putting together as lean a city budget as possible, including eliminating hundreds of vacant municipal jobs as a way to prepare for uncertainty around the threatened funding cuts from the Trump administration. Wu and the Boston City Council exchanged letters yesterday that include a shared focus on how the city should look with a leaner city budget. 41 degrees outside our studios. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance with its Name Your Price tool, a way to see coverage options based on a driver's budget. Learn more at progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
He's Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Thank you. We'll be back here on Friday with live music from the great musical Carousel. Next Tuesday, Michelle Wu will be here for another edition of Ask the Mayor. Next Wednesday, the State Auditor Diana Gisaglio will be with us. I'm a little tongue-tied today, Jim. And hello.
Hello to you.
Hello.
Hello to you too, Marjorie. And the governor's going to be here on April 25th.
I'm traumatized, Jim. Traumatized.
Well, you shouldn't be. In any case, we're joined now on Zoom for another, she brings people out of trauma, this next guest.
That's right.
For another edition of the Afternoon Zoo by Sy Montgomery, naturalist, prolific author. Her latest is the fabulous What the Chicken Knows, a new appreciation of the world's most familiar bird. Hello there, Sy Montgomery.
Hello there, Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. It's so good to talk to you.
Yeah, thank God for the animal world, Sy. That's all I can say at this particular juncture.
No kidding.
I saw this incredible video of this shark with an octopus riding on its back. Now, what's up with that?
Oh, that was so cool. I just thought that was wonderful. And there were so many funny things people were saying about it, like my other car is a shark too. But, why was he doing this? And of course, you can't get in the minds of these two animals, but I'd actually seen something similar to this, and you probably did too, on My Octopus Teacher, that wonderful film about the man who befriended an octopus for a year and kept checking in with her. And folks who've seen this will remember a scene in which these were different species of shark and different species of octopus, but it was a pajama shark hunting an octopus. And to a shark, an octopus is a delicious packet of unprotected protein because they have no bones. But they don't know how smart the animal is that they're dealing with. So what this octopus did in The Octopus Teacher was, they tried to shoot ink or get away or hide or change color, and none of that's working. When that doesn't work, jump on the back or the head of your assailant. Because the shark has no hands, he can't reach back there and get it off. And so that is what this really smart octopus did. And it might be what the octopus in that video did with the mako shark.
By the way, the thing I don't understand, though, is why was the octopus in this theoretical thing you're describing in the position to be potential prey? Because I think we've learned from you, octopuses spend most of their time at the bottom. Sharks do not spend almost any time near the bottom. So why were they about to have an encounter anyway there, Sy Montgomery?
Well, there's always individual variation, and there's always, that sharks may occasionally go to the bottom, or this one may have, and octopuses do sometimes go to the top. In fact, it's known that octopuses not infrequently crawl out of the water and look for stuff on land. So it could have been these two individuals doing something that is not necessarily unheard of, but was unusual and resulted in this very unusual experience of the octopus riding around the shark. That's my best guess.
So sorry,
I don't think someone put the octopus on the shark.
I didn't think so either. So what kind of shark is this thing again?
I think it was a mako.
Yeah,
and
it is.
Was a Maori,
I read
a Maori octopus.
They can reach speeds of 46 miles an hour, that shark?
Yeah, that octopus was in for a wild ride.
That is
really...
really...
Makos are they're very emotional sharks. And our friend Greg Scommel, who you know well, I think this is the story that came from him. Sometimes, there's a fishery for these sharks, or there was, and sharks will get caught. And even if they are dumped back overboard, for example, when Greg would try to put radio telemetry on one, sometimes the mako gets so mad, he jumps back into the boat to try to, beat up the people that did this with them. So there's a lot going on in these sharks' heads and a lot going on in the octopus's head, too.
Just one last question about this. What's the best strategy for the octopus to get off and to save its life? When the shark's going fast, or when the shark... what's just... or wait till it's near the bottom, or what's the best strategy there?
boy, I mean, I expect that the octopus was getting a wild ride to who knows where.
Yeah.
So I reckon he wanted to get off as fast as he possibly could. But sometimes, to unclench a lot of animals, including humans, when something scary is happening, you kind of clench your muscles and you hold on. So it may have taken him a while to figure out, I just better bail.
Wait a second, didn't I learn a few weeks ago, I don't know if it's from you, that despite what we mere mortals believe, that sharks never sleep, didn't we learn that sharks do sleep? And maybe that's a good time for an exit too. Is that right about the sleeping deal?
That would be good, but then you'd have to figure out, how do you know the shark is asleep if you're sitting on top of his head?
That's a very good point I hadn't thought of. We're talking to Sy Montgomery, who obviously is a lot smarter than we were.
Okay, so here's another. Apparently, if you're a city spider, you gotta manage the noise problem. So what a spider!
I love this story.
It's a great story. Who would have thought this?
It's an interesting story.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So tell us what they do to soundproof themselves.
Yeah, this is about funnel web spiders, who are very common. There's over 100 species in North America. They are not the same as the funnel web spiders in Australia that kill you, just so you know.
That's good.
And their webs are quite distinctive. They usually, we see them around the grass, and they create this like little funnel, and then they hide in the funnel, and they wait for their prey, or in some cases a mate, to show up on their web. They can feel those vibrations. They don't have ears like we do, but sound, as you know, is vibrations. We pick it up with our ears, with the hammer and the anvil, the stirrup and the eardrum and all of that stuff, which is basically like a repurposed fish jawbone, by the way, those 3 little bones in our ears. But somebody like a spider can use their web to help them detect those vibrations.
Isn't that wild?
So, but if it's really loud out, does that mess things up for you? We do know that for marine mammals, for example, that the noise in the ocean is lousing up their lives because their communication with each other is just being so these researchers wanted to know, what do spiders do about this? And they tested country spiders and they tested city spiders. Now, city spiders would be used to the ambulances wailing and, the cars backing up and beeping and all the vocal noise. Country spiders, not so much. I think this was like so interesting because it was like a cultural study. So what they did was the spiders were able to build their webs over something that projected a loud white noise vibration. And other spiders were subjected to softer white noise vibration. And the quiet, soft vibrations made no difference between the city and the country spiders. But for the loud noise, for the loud white noise, the city spiders created webs that, when tested in the laboratory, transmitted fewer vibrations to them in the tunnel. So they didn't want to know from. They were wearing their noise-canceling headsets.
You know what I love about
these
spiders? That is incredible.
One of the things I love
but the country spiders were different. This is what kills me, is that they were turning the radio up, essentially, so they could hear over the noise. They did a totally different thing.
When I was about to say, when I read one of the things I know, I speak for Marjorie, we both love about you, is how the intensity of your feeling for anything that is alive. And when I read these stories about scientists who have given a significant chunk of their lives to something like this, don't you want to like hug them or something? I mean, it's such a wonderful kind of thing. And they care and they get results, and the spider, it's a beautiful little story about these spiders. You should check it out. It really is.
It gives you a window into, how the spiders felt about the noise.
You're totally right.
Yeah.
And that's what I really love about it. I mean, it's really cool that they could modify this, that they had the ability to make it better, but that there was a cultural spider difference And we got a view into their little spidery minds. I love that.
Yeah, think about the poor spiders with the gas leaf blowers making all that noise, or the drills out in the street doing repair work on the roads. It's nothing, I mean, it's good that they can know a little bit about what they can do for it. But anyway, let's talk about out in Colorado, this overpass that was built out there. This is another great story.
Yeah, this is a total feel-good story.
Feel good.
And it's one that can be happening nationwide. It's terrific. Colorado was highlighted in this New York Times story for its success in building wildlife crossings. Not like, caution, wildlife crossings, but actual tunnels or overpasses equipped with fencing that would funnel animals to the safe passage so they wouldn't be hit by cars. And there's a lot of reasons why you don't want to be hitting animals with cars. Some of those large animals will kill you, and there's a lot of people dying from car collisions with wild animals. More animals are dying because of that. But there's a solution, and it saves money, it saves human lives, and it saves animal lives. So they set up trail cameras to see how this was working, and sure enough, the animals were using the overpasses and the underpasses. And this is something, it's a terrific investment that saves lots of people money. Nationwide, there's between 1 and 2 million car collisions with wildlife every year, and it costs $8 billion in property damage and kills about 200 humans.
By the way,
remember, sorry, go ahead.
No, I want to quote you when you say it's a terrific investment, and that's one of the reasons the New York Times is reporting that Trump is canceling the investment.
Of course he is.
He
of course he is.
A potential
He
hitch.
doesn't want us to have a library book. He doesn't want to save animals. He doesn't want to help sick children. He doesn't. I mean, every single thing that you care about in the world, it's extraordinary. And I know that there's many people who voted for him because they liked some other part of his platform. But people could not have voted for him because they wanted more animals to be slain on highways and more people to die in these car collisions.
Well, some may have. By the way, this is not rhetoric. Let me read the line from the New York Times. As the Trump administration cuts federal spending, a grant program that helps states and tribes pay for wildlife crossings in collision hotspots, like what Sy was just describing, is now in doubt, including grants that had already been promised to these jurisdictions.
And it's ridiculous because it saves us money. I mean, if ostensibly the problem with these programs is that they cost too much, well, that just is not true. These things totally pay for themselves. Canada has been a leader in this for many years. They've had wildlife overpasses and crossings for 20 years in some areas. And in one of the areas that they did this, they almost instantly reported like an 80%, actually the same figure as in this Colorado instance, an 80% reduction in collisions with animals.
And they mentioned
that's saving so many lives every year.
And they mentioned how popular these are in places like Colorado, which is a blue state, but also Wyoming, which is a very red state. Republicans love them, Democrats love them. So that's what's odd too, that in Wyoming, which overwhelmingly supports Donald Trump, they say that the senators and governors and political people in these red states are appealing directly to Elon Musk and Trump to not do some of the things that they're doing to blue states. Interesting, the blue states are getting most screwed now, and the money we talked about earlier from health stuff is blue states: New York, San Francisco, Boston, Chicago. But anyway, that's a quick aside.
Sy, I have one more question
my husband
about.
and I are joining the protest on Saturday.
You are?
Yeah.
Oh, fabulous. Say
Yeah,
hello to
of course
Howard
we are.
Forrest.
We're going to the Concord, New Hampshire one, but they're going to be all over the place.
All over the place.
And even if you obviously you did not vote for Trump, but for your listeners, even if you voted for Trump, if you show up for this protest, it's saying I voted for him, but not for all this other stuff that the non-elected Elon Musk is doing.
Yeah.
And I didn't vote to eradicate animals, and I didn't vote to hurt sick children.
Yeah.
No one did.
You should be speaking at the rally, Sy Montgomery. So, Sy, this story may be hard for you. Saltwater crocodiles eating feral pigs. What was the name of your Christopher Hogwood?
Christopher Hogwood.
Christopher Hogwood.
You would
Okay.
have loved him, you too. I wish he had a chance to meet
Why
him.
would we have loved Christopher Hogwood?
He was a great big Buddha master. He understood what makes life. He understood the juicy savor of life, which sometimes was eating a chocolate cupcake, but a lot of times it meant like lying in the sun while little children patted him. He just knew what made the world go round, and he knew how to make. I mean, he was 750 pounds. He knew how to make your sorrow seem small.
Oh,
wow,
so-
750 pounds.
So the reason why we care, this is a question, not a statement, that saltwater crocodiles are eating feral pigs is because when they eat a pig, please tell me if I got this right, what they, what's the word I can use, poop out, what they,
Yes.
whatever,
Excrete.
are things that are environmentally good for certain kinds of endangered land and water. Is that, did I sort of get that right or no?
Who would know that crocodile's poop would be such a great feature? You know?
So what does it do again? What's the good impact of this?
It's two different things. And when I say feral pigs, these are introduced animals who, I mean, through no fault of their own, humans brought pigs to Australia. There were no pigs in Australia. Now they're all over the place, as are water buffalo. And they dig everything up, they wallow, and they really wreck the billabongs, which, you know.
What's a billabong?
I sat as he waited by the billabong. It's a still body of water or backwater. And these are wildlife hotspots. So first of all, saltwater crocodiles, Crocodylus porosus, was declining dangerously, very rapidly, until their slaughter was outlawed and they were given some protections in 1971. Crocodiles elsewhere, other crocodiles, not the salties, have also been crashing in Australia, by the way, because they've been eating, again, introduced cane toads, which poison them. But never mind, there's actually a fix for that. But the reason that these salties are kind of helping the environment is, one, they are removing an unwanted feral creature who is creating an ecological disaster, and two, they're turning that into fertilizer that can create like a green oasis. And they are protecting the river banks. They're not eating enough feral pigs to eradicate the pigs, but pigs are super smart, and they know that there are crocodiles in those rivers. So they stay away from the riverbanks, and as do the water buffalo. And they actually would cause more damage in the river with their wallows than they would if they stayed away from the river. Ecologically, their damage is much worse if they're by the river, but they've learned to stay away. So here's these crocodiles that everybody's so afraid of. Crocodylus porosus is kind of it kills a handful of people every, it doesn't even kill someone every single year. In Northern Territories, I looked up the statistics on this, 23 people died in road crashes last year. 23 people died in the past 45 years from crocodile attack. So crocodile attack is not really a problem. If a pig can figure it out, you can figure it out too. Stay away from the salty crocodiles.
Wait a second, a pig didn't figure it out. A pig gets eaten by the crocodile. That's not figuring it out.
But they are starting to stay away from the riverbanks.
Oh, okay, fine. Okay.
Which is, I thought that, again, this is like psyops. This is so interesting because you're looking at animals' learned behavior. And the crocodiles cannot eat enough feral pigs to get rid of the feral pig problem, but the feral pig problem around the billabongs is diminishing because fewer of them are coming there. But anyway, the reason that there wasn't enough crocodile poop before was that they mostly ate fish before the feral pigs came, and they could go a year without eating or pooping. So nobody thought, let's look at the effect of crocodile poop. But now there's a lot of crocodile poop, and it may be having a really interesting effect. And I love how these native animals, these crocodiles who've been there since forever, they're very ancient animals, they're fixing a problem that humans caused.
When you mentioned the crocodile going a year without pooping, I'm thinking of Cory Booker when it dead. So That was pretty incredible too.
He fasted for the whole previous 24 hours.
Just incredible. Did you see him in the 24th and 25th hour? It was amazing.
He looked pretty spry.
So speaking of learned behavior, the last thing before you go today, there's this movie that I never heard of with Naomi Watts called The Friend. And the co-star of the movie with Naomi Watts is a 150-pound Great Dane. His name is Bing. And here is a little sound of Naomi Watts and Bing being on Jimmy Fallon while Watts is talking about what it's like to work with a dog in the movie. Here she is.
In this movie, a new friendship is formed. And you can see why. He melts your heart. Look at those ears. He listens and hears everything. He absorbs all vibrations, all inconsistencies, he's just alert. And so actually exchanging feelings with him is very easy. Wow. And he knows how to act. I'm not kidding you.
Here's the question. It was actually a sort of heartwarming piece in the New York Times, Sy Montgomery. But in this story, they talk in praiseworthy terms about how they were able to teach the dog to do things that were counterintuitive for a dog, to react 180 degrees differently because of the script to what a command is. And when I'm reading it, at the end of the thing, I was smiling, and then I said to myself, is that cruel to the dog to train it to behave in ways that run counter to what a dog would do? And I figure, who better to ask than Sy Montgomery? So what's the answer to that question?
Well, in that particular instance, I think you're talking about a scene in which he jumped up on some lady's fancy couch.
Exactly.
And she said, get off the couch. Well, of course, Bing had been trained to do what he was asked. Mm-hmm. He wanted to get off the couch.
Right.
But then, he wasn't supposed to get off the couch to be in the scene. And then he got admonished, and he didn't like that either.
Yeah.
And apparently Bing was actually kind of depressed after this. And I've seen this. Our dog Thurber, who you've met.
We love Thurber.
He gets depressed and angry, frankly, not bite you angry, but like I don't want to talk to you angry, if you admonish him for something. Don't run into the street or don't. I mean, he doesn't run into the street, but bring the ball back, and he doesn't bring it back when you want, and he'll be in an argument with you for the rest of the day. He'll be really annoyed. In this case, it's really hard. I've seen dogs, performing dogs, who are supposed to do funny acts in which the person asks them to do something, and they do something else, and everyone thinks that's hilariously funny. So there's ways to train them to do that so that their feelings aren't hurt. I mean, what I would have done, I don't know about theater or TV or movies or anything like that, but what I would have done is I would have focused on the lady's face as she said, don't do that, and shot that scene without him even in the room, and then had a picture of him in the room with her sitting.
I like that.
That's what I would have done to get around that.
They're such beautiful dogs, Great Danes. People say they're very, very gentle.
Yes, I have a friend who's a Great Dane.
Yeah,
and who's a Great Dane.
Lovely.
Remember they used to have Great Dane? You go down dancing with your Great Dane on Boston Common.
That
was
a
while ago.
Herald
the Boston Herald,
newspaper.
people dancing with their Great Danes. Yeah, and the woman I used to, when I had my dog groomed at the place called No Bones About It in Brookline, she shows Great Danes. I've never seen such gorgeous dogs.
Hope it ended there.
Great Danes.
Hey, Sy Montgomery, you lift our spirits every single time we talk to you. It's great to see you. Be well. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, Sy. Thank you very much.
Incredible.
We have been speaking with naturalist author Sy Montgomery. A texter was upset that we even had to bring in politics in the middle of our discussion about animals.
Well, because I saw the text from the guy, and with all due respect to you, the wonderful story she was telling about that Animal Crossing is being destroyed by the guy you don't want us to mention.
Even the animals.
Really? I'm serious.
Are under thumb.
Under attack.
Under attack.
Okay.
Sy's latest book is What the Chicken Knows, a new appreciation of the world's most familiar bird, but she's got a million great books. You love them for grown-ups and you love them for kids. Up next, we'll open the phone and text lines with a little more down-to-earth take on tariffs. The avocado. Americans love avocados, but 90% of the avocados come from Mexico. They're going to be a lot more expensive, I think, pretty soon. I hope not, but maybe they will. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Stephen Roth. Coming up on GBH's All Things Considered, Suffolk DA Kevin Hayden is publicly condemning ICE for arresting a Boston Municipal Court defendant in the middle of his trial. A judge is now weighing arguments from a group of towns opposed to the MBTA Communities Act. And we have some great spring book recommendations. Those stories and all the day's news starting at 4 on GBH's All Things Considered.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And New England Recovery Center, providing inpatient addiction treatment in state-of-the-art facilities located in Westboro, Mass. Learn more at newenglandrecoverycenter.org or by calling 1-877-MY-REHAB. And Bridgewater State University, helping create jobs for Massachusetts and working to connect industry leaders to graduates, elevating business in Boston and beyond. bridgew.edu/elevate.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Marge and Jim Browdy live at the library, stream at youtube.com/GBH News. Say what you will about fast casual chain Chipotle, they seem to be ahead of the curve when it comes to market research. The company has spent the past 7 years, Marjorie, trying to diversify their avocado supply, shifting away from Mexico as the main source, according to a story today, actually, in the Wall Street Journal. And with Trump's trade war escalations along our north and southern borders, and we'll know about the tariffs at 4 o'clock today, their efforts may prove extremely fruitful, so to speak. Mexico accounts for roughly 90%, which I did not know, of U.S. avocado imports, about $3.4 billion worth last year alone. The average American eats 9 pounds of avocados a year. For years, conservatives have maligned millennials in particular for their affinity for avocados, being told if they just give up their daily avocado toast and Starbucks espresso, maybe someday they can afford to buy a house. That might actually now be closer to the truth as the price of avocados and other goods are expected to increase. Like most of what Trump on-again, off-again tariffs, it's unclear how much they'll go up again. We may learn today at 4. But the lines are open at 877-301-8970. Talk about the avocado and you. Also, today we learned avocados are actually berries. Did you know that? Zoe told us that.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
I thought they were fruits. So did I. If you have any thoughts about that, we'd like to hear from you. And Marjorie's, on almost every topic, Marjorie has a side issue. This one is quite captivating. How do you pick them at the supermarket, number one?
Yeah.
So you'll tell us in a minute so you know that they're ready for action. And much more importantly, how do you keep them from bruising and getting brown and gross after you cut them or after you make guacamole?
Yeah.
How do you keep them bright green and happy? The number's 877-301-8970. Do you like avocados? I don't even know.
Oh my God, I adore avocados.
You do?
Yes, I do. I like avocados very much. And you know what I didn't know until today?
No, I didn't.
That the first wave of imports of them came to the Northeast and Midwest not until 1997. And the first time avocados from Mexico were finally permitted everywhere in the United States was 2007, the same year as iPhones went nationwide. So isn't that wild?
Would you read the great quote in that story? The guy says in Wisconsin at that time, we didn't even know how to spell
I know.
avocado.
Well, when you think about it, when you were a kid, did you eat any avocados?
Nope.
I never ate avocados until I went to college in California, and then avocados and alfalfa sprouts, they were everywhere. But that piece, I didn't realize it was that late in the game. But the way you keep them from turning brown, we're not supposed to use saran wrap anymore because of climate change, the plastic. But it is really tight saran wrap. This story says...
Lemon juice helps too.
That story also said, well, this is lime juice, I think. Isn't it lime juice?
Oh, it's some citrus.
Yeah, and a layer of water. I never heard about that.
Neither did I.
Did you know Tom Brady makes avocado ice cream?
I do.
I did not know that. It's lime juice, Jim, not lemon
Whatever
juice.
it is.
Yeah, but they're both acidic. That's supposed to slow it down. The old tried and true idea of just keeping the pit in the middle of the avocado does not work very well.
Wow.
I've learned that, yeah.
So if you have any tricks of the trade in terms of keeping it healthy, fine. If you want to tell us about how you feel about the fact that the prices of avocados and in turn guacamole probably are going to go up at 4 o'clock today or thereabouts, give us a buzz, 877-301-8970. 8970 is our number there.
Yeah. So and there's a big debate about which is more expensive, avocados or eggs. I think now eggs are down to about $5 a dozen.
No, actually lower.
Are they lower? Okay.
Lower, yeah. Can I ask you a
most
question?
avocados are at least $1 a piece.
So this morning, while you and I were having, before the show, a really important discussion about whether or not an avocado is a fruit, it was Zoe who let us know
it's a berry.
And one of our colleagues typed a question for us that I cannot answer. I'm sure you can. What is the difference between a fruit and a berry?
I have no idea.
Does anybody know what the difference is here? Good, thank you. 877, the answer is no if you're not watching on YouTube.
Do you want to play the avocado song?
Can you look up what the difference in a fruit and a berry is, Jamie? And not really, you're not going to look either.
Have you heard the avocado song, Jim?
No.
I think we should play it to get people in the mood
There
for
is
talking
a
about
song?
avocados. Yes, the avocado song, an earworm that will get you in the mood for eating avocados. Here it is.
That's the Chipmunks. Is that the Chipmunks?
It sounds like the Chipmunks to me.
That's fabulous.
It's pretty good.
I'm
it's
really
pretty
glad
good.
you played
So
that.
how do you feel about avocados? How do you like avocados? You're worried about the tariffs and what they could mean for your avocado eating. And the obvious way, you just feel the avocados, and that's how you determine when to buy
because
them.
they're almost all hard. And so you don't know
They're
how
not.
close to not hard. Yes, they are.
You feel them. They're
I
not
know,
all
you
hard.
have to show everybody how
And,
you do
and,
it.
and they're darker when they're
Okay, fine.
not ripe yet.
Now here's Zoe.
And they last forever in the refrigerator.
That's great.
If you don't cut
In the
them open.
refrigerator?
If you wait till and you say you have a bunch of avocados, which I often do because I really love avocados.
I love avocados, yeah.
If you have like 3 ripe avocados, you obviously can't eat them all at once. You put them in the fridge and they'll stay there for several days.
Okay, so here's an interesting question before we get to your
Yeah.
calls. Zoe went out of her way with great emphasis to say it is not a fruit, it is a berry. Jamie, who is also Zoe's colleague, says apparently a berry is a type of fruit, specifically a fleshy fruit that develops from the ovary of a single flower.
There you go.
So a berry is a fruit, according to Jamie. Zoe, what do you say to that? Nothing. Okay.
The ovary of a single flower.
That's what he said.
I did not know that flowers had ovaries.
Well, apparently they do.
I know they have petals and stems.
Okay. And by the way, if you have any tricks, Marjorie sort of ruined the whole thing here. If you have any tricks about preserving an avocado once opened that are other than the ones that Marjorie expertly shared with you a few minutes ago, please share them with us at 877-301-897. Can I say one more thing? We're making light of this, but for people who are really into avocados, do you know that Chipotle, 50% of the dishes they serve have some level of avocado in them? That means they're going to be paying more money. And what does that mean? If I may, since you're a tariff expert, the whole notion of the tariffs, from what I understand, other than exert pressure on other countries that do things they're already doing for the most part, is so we do manufacturing here. We're not going to grow avocados in Indiana. So what do we achieve by tariffing an avocado?
The reason we didn't have them here is because there are very few places that can grow them well. Mexico obviously is one. California is another one. That's why the guy from Wisconsin never had one. But listen to this, Jim. An avocado grilled cheese sandwich. One of the best things in life, says a texter. You ever had an avocado and grilled cheese sandwich?
No, have you?
No, you know what they have
Oh,
over
actually,
here?
we did from Roxy's. They
you know what they
delivered
have at the
to us.
Newsfeed Cafe?
Thank you very
That's
much,
right.
Juan Miguel.
My favorite sandwich here is the, and I shouldn't be eating bacon, it's bad for you, and bad for the poor
Just
pears.
tell us what it is.
Pigs, but the avocado and bacon BLT.
You know what's nice about that sandwich? Not only is there avocado on it, there is 3 pounds of bacon on each sandwich. Now, here's an interesting thing. Jay from Attleboro says, relating to our earlier discussion, the state Senate is now forming a commission to study who understands tariffs better, Donald Trump or an avocado, which I think will be a close question.
Well, did you hear what Jeffrey Sonnenfeld said? He thought his motivation was just tearing things down. I don't know if that could possibly be true.
You got to be kidding.
What?
You don't think that part of his is like a destruction freak kind of thing?
Well, you know, his niece wrote a great book, which people should read. I think she comes closest to talking about the rather traumatic childhood of Donald Trump. His father was a real jerk, treated him horribly. He loved his mother, but his mother became very sick when Donald was like 2 or 3, and there was no explanation for it, and things didn't turn around. I mean, the father pitted everybody against each other, just like Trump does. And you can see a lot of and he treated his brother that had the alcohol problem horribly.
That's her father, wasn't it?
Yes, that's her father.
Yeah.
So that book, I forget her first name.
What is her first name?
But
We've
we'll
had her
look
on
it up.
the show.
But she's great. Mary something or other.
Well,
and,
Trump is her last name, so it's...
Yeah, Mary Trump. Mary, I was thinking for
Mary
first name,
something or
Jim.
other.
Mary
Oh,
something or other.
okay,
Well, I
fine.
wasn't sure. She may be married. You know, some people take their married name,
I've
Jim.
heard that. Here's an anonymous texter. Avocados hate me. They take forever to get ripe, then decide to rot while I'm in the shower, which I think is the experience many of us.
You have to put them in the refrigerator as soon as they start to get soft. That. Rose from Dedham. What do you think?
Rose
Where are
from
you
Dedham.
on the avocado and you?
Hello, Rose.
Hi, how are you?
Excellent.
So I have been eating avocado since I was actually young in the Midwest, if you can believe that, because
Yeah.
my parents used to travel to Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And I, of course, really liked them. And then I married a Mexican, so they're non-negotiable in our house.
You married a Texan. Is that what you said? We
I'm
lost
really
you.
dismayed that the prices are going to go up, but I'll probably still eat them. But did you know that you can just, you know, the little stem piece on the end of the avocado?
Yeah.
If you take that off and it's green, that means that the avocado is ripe. If it's brown, it's overripe. Just a little tidbit there.
Oh, okay.
And in Mexico, they used to say the person who learns how to preserve avocados will be the richest person on earth. And there really isn't anybody from Mexico who's that person. So
Hey, Rose,
they
we're
haven't
losing.
figured it out. We have a long road to go.
Rose, we're losing you because you have a horrible connection. But you said if it is brown, it's overripe. If it's green, it's ripe. What color is the stem when it's pre-ripe?
I think she's gone.
Oh, Rose.
Yeah, we didn't have a good connection.
That's very
I
sad.
think you can tell by feeling them. That's
You said
how
that, I know.
I tell. By the way, who knows more about avocado feeling than Martha Stewart?
What'd
She's
she
a
say?
famed avocado feeler from way back. She used to
Yeah.
go out in the melons and feel the melons in the backyard at Turkey
You've
Hill
written
Farm.
about that. I'm aware
Yeah.
of that.
Well, here's Martha Stewart with some. By the way, it's a great. I don't know if what station
were
it's on,
so-
Netflix or HBO
What's
Max. The Story for Life is pretty
you
good.
said it was great,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's very, very good. I mean, she was. No matter what you think about her, she was a real trailblazer.
Did you see her when she was 80 last year in the
She looked fantastic.
bathing suit
yeah,
edition
she's
of
a
whatever you
good-looking
call
woman.
it?
Well, she was a model. I mean,
Switzels.
she
I
was
know
a.
she was.
Anyway, here's Martha Stewart with some advice for you when you're in a rush to ripen your $20 avocado. And by the way, this is something Callie Crossley told us too
She
when we
did?
had our last discussions of avocados. Here's Martha.
If you want your avocado to ripen quicker, you know, they come like rock hard, and put it into a paper bag and pack it with an apple and watch how quickly it ripens. Now, the apple produces ethylene, a gas that speeds up the process of ripening, and the bag loosely closed traps the gas, and the fruit is ready to eat in a day or two.
Is that true?
Yeah, Callie Crossley told us that.
I don't
Yeah,
remember
yeah,
that.
she told
That's
us that.
fabulous.
My best thing about Martha Stewart is when she was in the height of her fame, before she got in trouble for the stock insider, alleged insider trading. She was preparing their house in Turkey Hill for Christmas, and she had so many decorations and
goes.
assortments that she had to send her husband and kids. They had to move out for the Christmas holiday. There was no room for them and all the other decorations. And then I think the husband left her for some for one of her assistants or something like that.
What does that have to do with avocados?
Nothing. It was just a story.
Okay.
It was just a story about Martha Stewart,
Okay, I just want to be clear.
which is really worth watching if you have the time. Julie from
Okay, we
Falmouth.
don't give a crap about your opinion. Okay, we don't give.
We heard you the first
Okay,
time.
I put right in my place there.
That's Congresswoman Marjorie
Yep.
Taylor Greene, if you missed the show the other day. Hi, Julie in Falmouth.
Hi, Julie.
Hey, I love your show.
Thank you.
If the connection is bad, I'm sorry. I'm working at the Falmouth Hospital.
We're glad. Thank you.
Yeah, but so if you make guacamole,
yep,
and you want to save the guacamole, if you put a really thin layer of mayonnaise over the top, super thin,
Oh, my God.
it'll keep it from turning brown.
Wow.
You know, that's a good one,
That is
too.
fabulous.
I think a texter said something like that, too, Julie, but I've lost it. But here's what another one says. This is Dean Ashland. She said what she does is submerge the cut open half in water, it cut side down, and then put it in Tupperware and put it in the fridge.
Well, how about the mayonnaise idea?
The mayonnaise idea is probably a very
Julie,
good.
have you
idea.
done that, or are you just reading that? Have you done it?
Oh no. Oh, yeah, all the time, whenever I have leftover guacamole, because you got to save that guac. And the mayo is creamy, so it's good for the flavor.
I'm going to try it. Julie, thank you for the call. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much for the kind words, too, Julie. Thank you for calling. Isabel from Hollis, New Hampshire says, if you put a cut avocado and a cut onion into a container in the fridge, the onion helps the avocado not to oxidize.
Huh.
And she says brown spots avocados get it because the avocado was too cold at some point.
Can I ask you another question?
What?
This is a discussion we've had with Corby a lot of times, and I don't remember the answer. So let's assume you don't do the mayonnaise thing, you don't do the water thing, you don't do the whatever thing. You open the guacamole, you bought it at Whole Foods, which means it was like $38. You still have like $19 left. You forgot to do the right thing. It's brown crap on the top. It's soft. So can you just scoop the brown crap off and eat the green stuff?
Scoop it right off.
Meaning you have no idea, right?
You know, I don't make much guacamole, but I eat a lot of avocados. And when I have an avocado that might be a little brown,
just shave off the top?
I just shave off the top that's brown.
Is that okay?
I think so. Why not?
Okay,
and then if you have avocado toast, you know what's really good on avocado toast?
What?
Is
avocado?
No, balsamic vinegar tastes
I like
really
that.
good
I've
on
had
avocado
that.
toast.
Yeah.
Then you can put some raisins on it, a little Parmesan. What do you call the
Parmesan.
Reggiano? No, the Reggiano, whatever it is.
Cheese.
It's expensive.
Cold cheese.
Yeah, that's really good on it too.
Can I tell you something? Nobody cares about the tariffs. All they care about is how. And by the way, an anonymous texter says, I'd like to hear more about Martha Stewart melon squeezing. I would say it's inappropriate for our show, but Marjorie, when she was a crack columnist, you wrote more than one column about her feeling the melons.
The queen, and she's no longer at the Globe, but the queen of writing about Martha Stewart, and she was a genius, was Diane White, the great Boston Globe columnist. I was on the floor reading her columns about Martha Stewart. She kind of ruled the world for a long time. You felt like you had to try to keep up with Martha Stewart, which of course was impossible. But I loved it when she went to prison, and she taught all the women in prison how to make origami, how to decorate, arrange flowers. She did all these great things and for her fellow prisoners. But then one of the fellow prisoners said she thought she was a friend of hers, and she never talked to her again.
Wow,
yeah, it's kind of disappointing.
So since you're mentioning so many things that have absolutely nothing to do with the topic, can I mention one thing?
Certainly.
She was not convicted of inside trading.
No,
she was
what was
convicted
it?
of lying about insider trading.
Yeah, I mean, they really went after her.
They did.
Yeah.
Here's Nicole.
You think about what's going on now, and she actually did, what did she do, 5 months, 6 months, something like that?
Nicole, our colleague, I love avocados.
Me
Maybe
too.
too much. I go through phases where I eat them every day and then stop when I'm sick of them. I even bring my own avocados to the beach. Oh, there's Nicole right there.
There's Nicole.
Our own. Do you bring an avocado today, or are you sick of them today? You were sick of them today.
Okay, so I have a good story. I have a friend whose grandmother lived to be like 95.
Wow.
It was amazing. You think people at 95, you know, they're in ill health and stuff. She was like as sharp as a tack right through 95. She died quickly, and she kind of shrunk a lot. But you know what's the key to her success, she claimed?
What's that? Avocados.
Avocados.
Yeah.
She said she ate an avocado a day and kept the doctor away.
Yeah.
What are you
Another
laughing
incredible
at?
story. But she shrunk a lot, obviously.
She did.
Yeah.
She shrunk a lot.
Yeah, she was really healthy, and then she died.
Quickly.
She died quickly.
She did. She didn't linger.
Now, you've contributed a lot to this conversation. It's really valuable, I think,
Dave in
to
the
the
car,
listeners.
thank you for calling.
Hello, Dave in the car. Did you know that woman, Dave, or did you not?
No, I didn't,
She
unfortunately.
died with family, so it was okay. They were all with her at the
She
time.
died at 95, though. She
That's
had a
fine.
great life.
Sorry, what's
with
up,
all
Dave?
those avocados.
Take it away. Go ahead.
Love you guys. So anyway,
Thanks.
I lived in California in an avocado ranch as a kid.
Wow.
And I had to pick avocados twice a year, and it was a job that sucked a lot. Your hands get black. Your hands get black from the clippers. I had to climb up in the tree like a monkey and toss them down to the other family members. And I think that one of my points is when you're ripening avocados, I put them in the windowsill, and the second they start to turn soft, you gotta pull the stem off. Otherwise, they get little black striations from the stem, like little roots going into the fruit.
I did not
That
know
is
that.
a huge piece. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Keep going, Dave. That's great.
Then just like Marjorie said, you put them in the fridge, and they last up to a couple of weeks. Actually,
Yeah.
It's really amazing. But also, you know, the Cheeto in charge and his tariffs. I'm really hopeful that his flock of Cheetoettes that love avocados are going to see their mistake in their vote. So I'll take that one.
Well put, Dave. That was
thank
excellent.
you.
By the way, Jay in Brighton is responding to the 90-year-old that was healthy and then died quickly. She died quickly because of the avocados. Should have stored her with onions. That is really
I think
totally
Jay in Brighton has
inappropriate.
texted us several times saying he's on a roll, Jay.
It's really inappropriate.
Very good. You can be like on the Jimmy Kimmel show or
Now,
something.
another anonymous texter, I
Yeah.
assume this is a Juan Miguel kind of thing. Not sure if we are pronouncing mayonnaise correctly, so here it is. Or not. Okay, 877. It's
Oh,
like
is that the guy?
Like a fine-tuned...
The guy-
Chipotle.
Chipotle.
Yes. A little late in the wrong
That's
word,
close.
but it's
Listen to
close
this.
enough.
I
Is
have
that
the-
Juan Miguel? Is that the guy's name? Julian Miguel. I'm sorry, Julian Miguel.
Here's
My
Jim
fault.
B. from Arlington. I have the answer to all your avocado concerns, Jim.
What is it?
Market Basket sells guacamole in a squeeze pouch.
Yeah.
No air gets in. It doesn't get brown. Jim says he's kept it for over 2 weeks in the fridge. It's an avocado miracle.
Can I say, I've never said an unkind word about Market Basket on the show. You know how I feel about Market Basket? I've had it. It's not that good.
It's not?
It's fine. It's not great. And when
Oh.
it comes to guacamole,
Okay.
don't you want great?
Jim B., the other Jim B. here is insulting your taste in guacamole. I bet yours is great.
Okay, well,
Okay.
fine. I mean, yeah, it's not great.
Oh,
Peter-
America's Test Kitchen has a YouTube video on preserving avocados.
Does?
Yes.
Okay, well, there you go.
There you go.
Peter in Cambridge, you're next on Boston Public Radio. Hello there, Peter. How are you?
Hi,
Speaking
I'm
of Peter,
fine.
before you talk, can we hear one of the nicest guys, sort of, on the surface, who we know is one of the lead guys over at the Lennox, our friend Peter. Can we hear it from Peter here,
Hi,
please?
Peter.
Thank you. And let me just tell you a story, Peter, before you go ahead. I get to my car yesterday, and Peter, this Peter, not Peter on the phone from Cambridge, says that chocolate rice cake was delicious. I had a bag of chocolate rice cakes in the car. He gets in my damn car and starts eating the rice cakes. Is that a true story? Didn't want it to go stale. Thank you, Peter.
Peter
really
warmed
appreciate
up
it.
my car when it was cold all
Yeah.
during the winter. I'd come out and it'd be nice and cozy
Yeah,
in the
did he
car.
eat your rice cakes?
And he
I don't
always,
think
He
so.
always says how happy you were to see him every morning, right, Peter?
That's actually not true.
Yeah.
Peter in Cambridge, you are next on Boston Public Radio. Welcome to the show, Peter. Hi there.
Peter.
Thank you. Hello.
Hello.
I was just about to cut an avocado for lunch, and I couldn't stand the suspense. We've had a long relationship, the avocado and I, but we're in counseling now at this program. And so I buy two, and if one of them's good, I'm happy. I won't describe the one that I just cut open, but it's inedible.
Oh, no.
Well, that's, wait, don't go ahead.
The only problem,
Oh, go ahead, Peter.
I'm going to
Go ahead.
hop to another subject,
Please.
which is that I'm an illegitimate grandchild of Martha Stewart.
No.
When she was a caterer in Connecticut, a dear friend of mine worked for her. Then I worked for my dear friend, and she passed along certain tricks from Martha Stewart, and Martha Stewart stole some of my friend's recipes. So
really,
yes, and published them, and claimed that they were her grandmother's recipe when it was my friend Sarah's grandmother's recipe.
It's the saddest story I've ever
Oh,
heard.
my God. So I guess you
Yes,
should have
and
gone
you-
to jail then, Peter, huh?
The only problem with eating in the car is that the passenger side in my car is like knee deep in wrappers of stuff.
Yeah.
But, that's a problem that's less than the avocado. Okay.
Okay, well,
I'm done.
I'd say okay. I think that's about enough. Peter, thank you. That was an excellent call. We really enjoyed
Here's
at
a
least two
texter.
of the 3 points.
Who cares about the avocados? With Trump in charge, we need tequila. That's a good one.
That's probably true.
Yeah.
Hey, Pete, do you like tequila, by the way, since
I do.
we're talking about
I do.
irrelevancies?
Yeah, tequila and
I really like
margaritas.
tequila.
Or some
And I
people
know
just
what
drink it
goes in
with
a
shots
margarita.
of tequila.
Do you put salt on the side of that?
I do.
I
I
don't
do.
like
Remember
that.
that was when you're a kid, or lots of people maybe still do
When
it. They
kids
do the
started
shots of
drinking,
tequila
yeah.
with the lime and the salt.
I don't remember
I mean, you can do a couple of those in
Peter,
good shape.
well, good.
Or
Peter,
not so good shape,
whatever.
I should
Pete
say.
in Gloucester, you have 30 seconds. Welcome to the show. Thank you for calling. Hi.
Hey, how you doing, guys?
We're good, thank you.
I'm a very political person. I'm calling about this subject.
Yeah.
I am marching on Saturday. I'm going to make a sign for Donald saying, I know you had it rough, buddy. Come to the left for free hugs and therapy.
Oh, okay.
quite
Very
lovely.
nice. That's very thoughtful of you, Peter.
Not exactly avocado related.
It's not avocado.
We gotta kill him. I don't know. We gotta use some love here.
I like that. I like your approach. Pete, thank you very much for the call. Do you know that not one
Listen to this.
person called upset about the tariff on avocados?
Well,
not
people,
one.
No, not. I guess they're willing
Not
to pay
one.
for whatever it's going to cost.
guess they are.
Here's Dr. Z from Maynard. The way to keep your guacamole green and fresh is to get a guac lock. You fill it with guacamole, squeeze the lid down, and take out all the air, and it stays fresh
That makes
for
sense.
even a few days in the refrigerator. A guac.
Well, you know what you do
I
if
didn't
you
know
do
there was
that?
any such thing.
No,
Did you?
I do actually. You can get that on Amazon, and then you cover yourself in mayonnaise, and that's sort of.
For reference in French, this is said as mayonnaise.
Thank you.
Mayonnaise.
A little late for that, Juan Miguel, but thank you.
Apparently, Brazil and Peru are
Whoever
stepping
he
in.
is.
Are stepping in on the avocado
Okay,
front,
good.
Jim. So
Can we talk to Jared now?
Yeah, we're going to talk to Jared.
Hi, Jared.
Hi,
How
Jared.
are you?
Hi there.
Are you an avocado man, Jared?
I love avocado.
Yeah. What is your secret to keeping them fresh?
Well, you don't have to have a special device. You could just put it in the refrigerator in Tupperware or any old thing. But yeah, that keeps in the refrigerator
Listen
forever.
to how dismissive he is. Like we're idiots. I mean, really.
Let's wrap them tightly, Jared. Tightly.
By
no
the way,
air.
can I tell you something? I rarely compliment you. Liza Minnelli was fabulous on your show yesterday.
Wasn't she?
She was really, really good. People should listen to
those
that.
stories she never told about her mother before. I couldn't believe that was happening. By the way, is Peter from the Lennox still there in the audience?
He left.
No, he left.
You know, every day when I pull up, he tells me what your mood is that day.
That's right.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, he's the
We all
he's the
hear
first
that,
adult I
Jared.
see every day.
I hear it every
Okay,
time
Marjorie,
at the
thanks.
library.
What are you doing
It's
on
never good.
Okay. What?
No, sometimes I just drive away.
So as he said, should I go in?
Yeah.
Maybe I should go home now, quit while I'm ahead?
What are you doing on your show today,
We
Jared?
actually have part 2 of our interview with Liza Minnelli for every day this week.
Okay, good.
We're going to start by talking about Carousel, the big 80th anniversary. I know you guys have talked about this as well with its director. And then this is big. Elizabeth Strout, the author,
writer?
the best-selling author.
God, she's great.
She's going to be delivering the keynote address for Literary Lights for Associates of the Boston Public Library this year. We'll talk to her about her process, her muses, and her latest book. And then we're going to talk about the hanging nasturtiums at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, which is a great tradition.
By the way, before you go away, I assume you're aware that in addition to beautiful singers, 2 of whom are going to perform with us here on Friday from Carousel, do you know who else is performing in Carousel?
I do.
Who would that be?
That would be Lee Pelton.
That's right.
Lee Pelton from the Boston
Foundation.
Foundation.
When do they hang the nasturtiums? You're not going to tell us, right?
No, they're up right now.
They're up right now. Okay.
Excellent.
We already
Jared,
missed
we'll
it.
be listening. Good to see you.
Okay, thank you very
Bye.
much, Jared. Thank you all for listening to another edition of Boston Public Library. Thank you to people that came down to the Boston Public Library.
Thank
we
you all for
appreciate
coming.
that.
We appreciate
you keep
it.
up with us 24/7 by way of our podcast, or check out our TikTok page at Boston Public Radio. Tomorrow we're going to be joined for political analysis, Chuck Todd.
Toddcast is up, by the way.
Toddcast is up. He's
Yep.
our media guy for tomorrow. Former Massachusetts Secretary of Public Safety, Andrea Cabral, former Massachusetts Secretary of Education, Paul Reville, and Love Letters columnist,
great.
Meredith Goldstein. We want to thank our crew, Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss. Addition and support from Tamsin Vidal. Our engineer, John LeClaw Parker. Our executive producer, Jane Bologna. Special thanks to BPL staff, Maddie Geyer, Bill Francis, Juan Jose Cadena. Our host, the Newsfeed Cafe. And across the street, the Lennox Hotel. We were just visited by Peter from
They're
the
all
Lennox
fabulous
Hotel,
people over
who
there.
keeps us
They're
apprised
great.
of Jim's moods every morning.
great.
Stay tuned to The Culture Show with Jared Bowen right after us here on 89.7 GBH. I am Marjorie Egan.
I'm Jim Browdy.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Hope
Thank
you can
you
tune
all.
in tomorrow and have a great afternoon.
See you.